right up on it. So bring it to you. So
Yeah, so let me
let's move this over.
Yep, move that, move this. And right. Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah.
It's tickling my mustache.
No, that's good.
All right.
Cool. Buckle up, kiddies. All right. Well, let's get right into it, huh, Dainer?
Yeah.
Guys, welcome to the Swan Time. Today, my guest is Dain Swenson. It's a family name.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in. And I want to dive into that mind of yours, sir. I try to grow out my hair as long as possible, trying to, compete with your mane and the front mane. What's that referred to as now?
Oh, yeah, the beard. Yeah.
Cool. Dain, I think we've known each other for, maybe 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, we met. I was thinking of this earlier. We met when I was hired at Guitar Center in February of 2012. I'm pretty sure that was the month I was hired.
Okay.
I know it was that year.
Yeah, so I always kind of relate it to the person I'm closest with now, which is my wife, and I met her on September 11th of 2011. So to gauge the other friendships I've had around that, I'm like, wow, it's impressive when you've known somebody for as long as you've known your significant other.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, man, and setting some time aside, and hopefully we run nice and late for you.
Yeah, not a problem.
What's today? Today's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a relaxing Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that. The holidays have been hectic. So tell the folks a little bit of what you do now for work and maybe some hobbies, and then we'll kind of get into what makes you tick as we reminisce on the Capitol being stormed.
Yeah, the long and fascinating story.
We won't get into that.
Yeah.
Or we might. Who knows?
We'll see where the drink takes us.
Yeah, some Maker's Mark. And what are you sipping on there?
This is Mephisto Italian Absinthe.
Okay.
And then I have some craft porter by a brewery down in Tucson called Dragoon Brewery.
Shout
My
out.
cousin works there. You should check them out. They've got good stuff.
Dragoon Brewery in the 520. Mm-hmm. Nice. I just finished the little bit of absinthe you gave me, and
Yeah.
I'm nice and warm now.
It kicks.
Yeah.
It'll warm you up.
I mean, it's winter in Arizona, so short sleeves.
Right.
Yeah. But so what are you doing right now as your career/passion?
Yeah. I'm an archaeologist. I work here mostly in the valley, but the wider southwest area. Mm-hmm. I worked for the first time in the southwest after I finished at Arizona State with my bachelor's. And the industry term we use is cultural resource management, or contract archaeology. Mm-hmm. So I work for a few different companies in the valley. Well, one in Flag and then 2 in the valley. And usually it's contracted by construction companies anytime there's a development that is being done, but also government jobs like national forests, or if there's infrastructure projects. There are federal codes that need to be followed with development that require cultural resource management, which means we come in, we check out what the archaeology is, because there's thousands of years of indigenous cultural history in this region. Yeah. And it's important that we conserve that and that we respect them based on the history they've had to go through. It's important to us as workers, and it's an important federal code to make sure that their material culture, their archaeology, is conserved. So my last project I just got back from yesterday I was based in Bisbee, a little mining town in near the border, and I was monitoring the construction of the border wall. And so while they're going through and they're blasting or they're trenching and then putting the panels down, the sections of the wall, my job is to make sure they're not ripping up any human burials. And when possible, I would, in this particular phase, I would go ahead and just do a quick pedestrian survey, we call it. Just walk ahead of the wall and see if there's anything on the ground there. And if there is, then I document it. I've got a little handheld GPS. I'll shoot it into that. I'll take a photo and a short description. And then it all gets compiled into a report at the end of the project. And that's just the most recent one. There's lots of different kinds of projects that I do as an archaeologist. There's most of the work I did over the summer was survey, usually for national parks. Those are the funnest jobs, I think.
Yeah.
Because we are sent out into the forests. They want to know where things are in case there are fires, which there are a lot of these days. If they're doing forest management, like they need to thin out the trees or whatever they need to do, they want to know where the artifacts and the sites are.
Where do they thin out the trees with fire? Not in peak season?
Well,
like a controlled burn?
That I'm not sure of. I know controlled burns are a method.
Yeah.
But the projects I've been on, they use mulchers, which are these big machines that just come through and rip up the tree.
Those are impressive machines.
Yeah. So we go through on foot, usually in teams of 3, 4, or 5 archaeologists, and three teams of 3 to 5 people, and just walk lines in the forest. And look down at the ground until we find something. And when we do, it's the same thing. We'll document everything that's there. We create a perimeter around the area, and then we'll write a short description of the site, and then again write up the report at the end of the project. So those are the jobs I enjoy the most because it's being a professional hiker.
Yeah.
And for a lot of those, we're paid to be camping out in the middle of nowhere. I did a job in Tonto where we went up the rim and then we took a right down Young Road and drove, I think, almost an hour down Young, and then took another side dirt road for another hour and just way out there.
Yeah.
So it's
far
nice.
from a McDonald's.
Yes. Yeah, and you have to take everything you need for the job, and we're in tents or whatever. I knew a guy who actually would just sleep in a hammock.
Really?
Yeah, he liked to sleep just out in the open.
Yeah.
And good on him, but I get a little paranoid about some of the wildlife when you're that far in the sticks.
Yeah, for sure. They're like, what is this? What is this tasty morsel here?
Yeah, well, we had one day where I woke up and not too far from the center of the camp, there was bear shit in the middle of the
So a bear
area.
does shit in the woods?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I found out finally this summer.
Dude, so there's so much in that that you touched on that like I have so many questions in particular because people think you say you're an archaeologist and people have it pictured in their mind like what you do. So you had mentioned earlier that you were like a project manager or like a supervisor. So that's essentially what you said you were doing at the border wall was, supervising the build, the construction to make sure that everything's going to protocol and regulations that are awesome because that wall's going through a tribe, right?
It's unfortunate in some respects, well, in a lot of respects, but the major nation in Arizona that is being impacted is the Tohono O'odham. Yep. Tohono O'odham. And that's basically ripped their nation in half because they're partially in Mexico, they're partially in southwestern USA. Mm-hmm. And for them, they've been here longer than both of those countries, and they've just always been able to go back and forth. And that's who they are. That's where they live. So to have the wall go through is quite unfortunate. And then also the ecological impact, because that's something I've been tasked with occasionally. Mm-hmm. I'm not a trained biologist, but I do occasionally do some environmental monitoring. That's part of the job I'm down there for. Just counting the wildlife, taking a look at the species. If there are vulnerable species of plants that need to be relocated, same kind of thing. Locate them, and then the construction company will move them. I'm actually not a supervisory role in this project, and that's because most federal regulations have been given a waiver by the Trump administration, and certain state governments have waived the environmental and cultural regulations that you normally follow.
Yeah.
So I will give credit where credit is due in this particular case. And the construction company that contracted us, they didn't have to do the due diligence, the cultural resource management, but they decided to have us out anyway.
The PR firm did.
well,
I get it.
Well, no, the credit where credit is due. I work with these guys very closely, and the supervisors I would discuss, what I was there for and what I would be doing for the week. Very respectful.
Awesome.
And they would, say, yeah, that's great. I'd talk to my guys weekly about the environmental stuff. And I did notice a tangible difference from the first time I went down at an area called Teotihuacan. And I would be marking up, little notes, you guys need to make sure your concrete trucks are being washed out in a disposal area so you're not contaminating the area with lye and stuff. Certain areas of the job site had garbage, and I had to shoot that in and send that to their supervisors. But the last time I was down, it was quite a snooze fest because they have their job sites now immaculate. They're following all the regulations they need to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate that when companies are doing what they need to do to make my job easy so I don't have to make their job hard.
Yeah, you're almost like a food inspector.
Kind of. I've thought about it a couple of times, and in situations where I'm a monitor, I almost feel like a mix of the character Walter Peck from Ghostbusters, who has to come in and bust their chops.
Yeah.
And then every archaeologist wants to think they're either Indiana Jones or Lara Croft.
Of course, yeah. Or Lara Croft. And it's not based on the sex or the gender.
No.
I'd like to be Lara Croft. She's badass.
They both have fun adventures.
Yeah. So when you tell people you're an archaeologist, what's like the first question out of their mouth? Or like, what do they picture you doing that you really don't?
Yeah, the most common one is dinosaurs.
Paleontologist.
I get that constantly. And that's not necessarily totally incorrect because my skill set can transfer over. So I was out in Vegas recently about 3 weeks ago. I did a job based in Vegas, and the first part of the job was cultural resource survey ahead of, I think it was a power line that they were going to put through. And then after that, we had the back end of the project, which was a paleontology survey. And so we were out again in National Park area, and this time we were surveying for petrified wood.
Okay.
So I do finally get to say I was a paleontologist because I loved dinosaurs as a kid, and my parents facilitated it. It kind of waned over the years, but it's information you never forget.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Everybody thinks that. I think the first time I heard that, somebody was an archaeologist. Oh yeah, you're digging up dinosaurs?
Yep.
It's like, no, it's paleontologist.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, my bad. And then I remember the first conversation I had. It was like at a house party. You remember Coop?
Yep.
Yeah, it was one of his friends, and like literally just went down like this rabbit hole with this guy on just talking about human history and evolution and all that good stuff. I love that shit. Pardon my French. Is that French? Why do people say that?
That's a good question. Oh, excuse me. That absinthe hits.
You've been in France though.
Yes.
Did you ask them?
No, I didn't. I was too busy enjoying the architecture, the art, and
the women.
Yes.
Is a beard part of the uniform?
No, but they're not uncommon.
Yeah. Why is that?
When you're camping as a lifestyle, there's just certain things that you can't keep up on like you normally do. I sometimes have to remind myself now to wear deodorant because when you're working in the Arizona heat all day and you need to cool off, there's no logical reason to wear deodorant.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's shaving becomes a problem. Some of these projects were gone for 8 to 12 days and you won't shower the entire time unless you're like one field supervisor I had who rigged himself up his own solar shower because he loved to have a shower. So he had this, the bottle was great. It looked like that rig from Waterworld where he has the dirt container.
Yep.
Same kind of thing. Big container like that with the rope exterior, and then he leave it out in the sun, and then at the end of the shift he could take a shower.
Nice.
But, for me, it's usually baby wipe
Yeah,
baths.
I'd probably be the same. Just suck it up for the week,
You do.
2 weeks.
Yeah. Then there's the post-job shower. That's a whole institution in archaeology when you get all the dirt out between your toes.
What's it called? There's got to be slang for that. What's it called?
We don't know. It's just the after-work shower.
Oh, come on. We got to come up. By the end of this podcast,
All right.
we'll come up with a name for that, all right? So another interesting thing you said is... or you kind of touched on was you get contracted by companies to do the work, because I picture it's always like university funded, state funded, federal funded, like that. My mind just automatically goes, oh well, you're just working to gain knowledge for us, like for the humans as a whole, right? For our collective,
for all mankind.
Yeah. Them's the words.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get contracted by a company who's looking, I say, obviously make a profit. It's a business move to have you guys on, where you would think is like, oh, you're an archaeologist. It's just like I said, university funded or something like that. So I guess, I don't know, kind of touch on that, because I never thought of that angle. Like when you said that, I was like, holy crap. Like, yeah, that's right.
A lot of people don't. It's not one of the more, unless you work construction and you've been around men and women like us who are doing this, and then, it's not something most people think of. And it's the same with a lot of field sciences. Biology or geologists will be called in. They work all the time with construction and development firms. But back to archaeology, it's almost been divided into two different realms. Mm-hmm. There's the academic realm, which is what most people think of. Museums, not depending on the museum, because there are cultural and archaeological museums that sometimes fund digs, but generally it's universities, and then their funding comes from the state. You can do that. And then the other world is contract archaeology.
Yeah.
Historically, there was a bit of a rivalry between the two camps, because the academic archaeologists, generally they go all the way to a PhD. The digs are led by professors. They're very meticulous about what they do. And I've been on academic digs. I did one in Ukraine in 2019, and we were at this Viking Age site, and it was a hybrid Slavic Viking site. It was a winter camp where they would come down through the Volga River through Russia and Ukraine, and then they'd go down into the Mediterranean to trade with the Byzantines, the Eastern Romans, and the Arabic caliphates. And then they'd come back up through these river systems. So that was an academic gig, and we were going down meticulously.
Yeah.
But it was also a co-endeavor with the local museum and a bunch of Ukrainian archaeologists. And we had our we had our unit we were working on. I think it was about 15 or probably about 20 meters, 20 by 30 meters or something like that. And we had that spot that our team was working on, and it was British archaeologists, one other person from Iceland with me, and actually, I believe that was it. Yeah, 2 people from Iceland, the rest were from the UK. The Ukrainians had their own work they were doing. They were trying to find the extent of the old river system, because it doesn't flow where
river systems
differently.
change.
Yes. Yeah. So they were looking for the extent of the old river system so they could find the port that the Vikings were using. And they thought we were absolutely insane, because they were using a different methodology. They would shovel it out in metric units, which is actually what we do in archaeology. We'll dig a 1 meter by 1 meter window, or however big we need to do it.
A window into
down,
the past.
Yes.
Wow.
And then we'll dig down 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters. So that's what they were doing, and they were going much quicker than we were. And the older Ukrainian archaeologist, this guy named Yuri, he was a walking meme.
Well, his name's Yuri.
Yuri, yeah. Yeah, he'd come over and he would just look over the trench and kind of judge us silently, because he didn't speak much English, and we could tell he's probably sitting in there thinking these guys are the slowest diggers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the rub. That was the rub between the camps. Is archaeology in the academic realm is very meticulous. It's very scientific, and you document everything.
Because in this sense, you guys were the academic, and the Yuri was part of the what would you call that?
Well, no, they were financed through a museum, so they were doing academic as well.
Okay.
They just have a different methodology. The Ukrainians do it differently, and actually the British do it differently from us in the U.S.
They do it with their pinkies out, right?
Yeah, right. But in comparison, in contract archaeology, because it's on a budget and because it's for development, you just don't have time or money to spend on every little detail. You have to be efficient about what you're doing. So for a while there was a bit, I won't say a feud because I'm not old enough to remember how much tension there was. I just know from older archaeologists that the two camps historically were not always jiving because of that. And the academics tended to sometimes have an attitude of, these guys are just not educated enough to know what they're looking for, and they're doing things sloppy. But that's changed a lot. The environment I work in now, it's not uncommon for people to have like myself, to have a master's degree and to be doing contract archaeology. You can theoretically do it with an associate's degree. There's a program at Pima Community College, and they just churn out what we call CRM archaeologists. But there's a lot more crossing over between the two. It's very common now to do like what I've done, where when I finished my bachelor's, I did CRM archaeology for a summer, and then I started grad school. And now that I'm done with grad school for now, I'm back to doing CRM. So, and the two camps, there's a lot to learn from each other. You can learn efficiency. You can learn how to document things or pick up new technology and techniques. So
nice.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about this earlier before we started recording, but you started at MCC and then went to ASU.
Yes.
And then you went abroad, right? So what talk about the path to get to where you are now
Okay.
in your academics.
Yeah. I started at MCC, and the first time I ever left the country was through a summer study abroad program with Mesa Community College, and I can't recommend that enough to students who are starting in, or even people who are done like yourself, because they're very affordable programs. They let you go overseas to different parts of the world for usually 3 to 6 weeks. And the catalog when I was going there, I was down to 2 programs. Because I didn't know if I wanted to be a biologist or an archaeologist. I could have gone to Namibia, Africa for 6 weeks, live out of a 4x4 vehicle, and helped biologists on a cheetah reservation.
Ooh,
or
okay.
What I did go with was to go to the UK for I think it was 5 weeks. Go to the UK, study British history and intercultural communication. Whole program cost $3,000, and that included your plane ticket to and from, your lodging, your tuition, and then you just brought some extra money for excursions, which we did. I'd go out to Oxford, we went to Paris, went up to Edinburgh, went to London. So it's a very affordable way to get out, and even for people who don't have...
Could you still do that, though? Travel like that with Brexit?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, because these summer programs last less than 90 days, and with the Schengen zone, you can, as an American, not currently, of course, but normally, you can enter...
Wait, what's going on now?
Yeah, normally
COVID.
you can enter most European nations. The Schengen zone, which doesn't include the UK anymore, but they have similar regulations, you can enter for 90 days without any visa, but then you have to leave after 90 days. So the program is less than that. So you get to go there, and then they also bring their own professors that'll teach the classes. They just basically borrow classrooms. So for people who have even never gone to college, you don't have to be enrolled in a program to do stuff like this. You can just register as a student and apply for the abroad program. And if you get in, then I think of it as an academic vacation. You get to go to a new country, experience things you never would have. It's not terribly expensive, and they have savings programs to help you, and there are scholarships to apply for.
Yeah.
And get a couple of credits under your belt. You may never do anything with those credits, but you had a hell of an experience.
Yeah.
So I came back from that, and then I transferred to ASU when I finished what I could at MCC. And my first year was tough. I kind of struggled with the ASU student culture.
Yeah.
It just was, I just wasn't jiving with it 100%. And I wanted to try going abroad again. And my dad's family immigrated a little over 100 years ago from Sweden. So I was curious about going to Sweden. And I signed up for another study abroad program with ASU, which was a lot more expensive. And that I have had help over the years from my dad and from family members who have been generous enough to, when I can't come up with what I need to myself, if they have the ability to help, they will. So I went to Sweden for 6 months and did the classes there. I finished the semester, and I wasn't sure I wanted to come back to ASU. It was expensive, and I struggled in my classes. And while I was in Sweden, I had the time of my life. I had straight A's. I met people I'm still in touch with to this day, and this was back in 2015, and got to see so much. I went to Russia, Estonia, Denmark, Germany while I was there.
Wow.
So I thought maybe I should take some time to consider my options, because when I took German studies or German class at Mesa Community, we learned about the German education system, and foreigners, just like German students, can go to university for free.
Really?
So I needed to think about things, and I told ASU I was taking a sabbatical, and when my semester was over, I took a train down to Berlin, and I enrolled in a language academy.
Nice.
And called a Sprachschule in Germany. And so I was going to classes in Berlin 3 days a week for 4 hours at a time. And I was living out of hostels. For 3 months, I just went from hostel to hostel to hostel around Berlin.
Why would you jump around, though?
Because you can only stay up to 2 weeks. They want to maintain what they consider the hostel atmosphere, where it's a place where internationals can meet, make friends, and experience the city.
Gotcha.
So they don't want, it's not an apartment.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense then.
Yeah, so I did that. I met tons of people. It was, I think back to that film Fight Club, where Norton's talking about his lifestyle when he's traveling from city to city. Everything's single serving. So it wasn't quite single serving, but I would have these temporary friend groups of the travelers coming through. I would stay for usually a week and a half, and then there'd be travelers coming in, and we'd meet. I'd make some friends. We'd do some stuff around the city, and then they would go home, and I would move to a different hostel. And so I still have some friends I made that way. But eventually, I had to leave Germany because I didn't have a proper study visa, and I wasn't on track to be enrolled in a German university. So,
Gotcha.
Again, I didn't want to go home.
Yeah.
And I was down to, I think, $600 or $700, and I called up my parents. And I had the same conversation, actually, when I left Sweden. I call up my mom. I'm like, Mom, I don't want to come home. I got some money. I think I'm going to go to Germany. And my mom says, well, I don't know if it's safe. I think maybe you should come home. Okay.
What year is this?
This was 2015. So this was when the migration crisis was really kicking in.
I was
living in Berlin at the height of the migration crisis.
And then wasn't like Ebola around then too?
Yeah. So it was a bit of a crazy time. And actually, as a side note, I took German classes with refugees from Syria and Iraq, which gave me a much better perspective on it, because it's easy to think of migrants as just a class of people, and there's certain rhetoric around migrants. They're dirty, they bring crime, that's been popular rhetoric in the US in recent years. But I'd meet people like this guy Muhammad, who back in Syria was a doctor in Damascus, but he couldn't keep his family safe with the civil war. So he didn't ever want to go to Germany, but he had to leave Syria. So he came to Germany. He enrolled himself in classes so that he could get back to practicing medicine in Germany as quickly as he could. Yeah. And there were other people that I met along the way. But as I was saying, I had to leave Germany, and I had to have that same conversation with my parents. I'm like, Mom, I got $600. I got an offer for cash work in Spain, down in Barcelona. So I have enough money to either take a flight to Barcelona, pay my first month of rent in the staff housing, or I can buy a flight home. Of course, she thinks I should come home because the migration crisis was at its peak. Okay. So then I call up my dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, I've got a few $100. I can go to Spain, or I can come home. Don't come home. Go to Spain. Yeah. You'll figure it out when you get there. Yeah. Have fun. Let me know when you get to Barcelona.
Badass. Hell yeah.
And that's usually how it has to be when I ask my parents for advice on travel, because my dad was in the Marines back in the 80s, and he was stationed in West Germany, South Korea, and Japan. Actually, no, I'm not sure if he was stationed in Germany, but I know he was in South Korea and Japan. So he's been around, and he wants me to travel, whereas my mom is a little more sheltered, and she lives on her farm up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And she's been out a couple of times, but she plays it safer. So I usually had to land somewhere in the middle. So I take off to Spain, and I work for cash on the beach for about 2 or 3 months. I was working for a bar crawl. And so I was selling tickets on the beach. And then usually the workday consisted of, you wake up around 10 or 11, you wake up, you have breakfast, then we walk down to the beach, we buy a 6-pack of street beers, and we have a shotgun to start the shift, and then we start selling tickets. When we ran out of beer or sangria, then we go home for siesta. We pass out for a few hours, wake up, have dinner, then go to the Gothic Quarter to sell some more tickets, drink some more street beers, and then at 11:30, meet up with the whole group and take them to a few more bars, and then finally end at a nightclub. And this was 5 nights a week I was doing this. So I felt like I compressed 4 years of collegiate drinking into about 2 or 3 months.
Damn.
But
what a way to live your those 5 weeks.
Yeah, it finally ended. I was running out of money, and unfortunately there was a very tragic event where one of my coworkers and a friend of mine passed away, unfortunately.
Oh no.
It was very sudden. And it really blew everyone away and made everyone do a lot of like rethinking, because
soul
it was
searching.
Yeah, to an extent, some more than others. Some people it's their lifestyle, it's what they want to do. For me, I was just kind of there because I needed cash, and I didn't want to be in the US. But at that point, I was thinking, I think it's time to come home. I should finish my degree and then see what happens.
Yeah.
So then I did. I graduated from ASU, and then I went into CRM archaeology work, but I wanted to go to grad school. So when it came time to start looking for graduate opportunities, I knew I didn't want to study in the US because it's too expensive to study in this country anymore.
Wow.
I wish I didn't have to say that, but I had colleagues who were graduating with a bachelor's degree with $130,000 in debt. And we make okay money. You can make decent money as an archaeologist, but I will say this. With that amount of debt, I don't see a possible way to pay off that kind of debt with interest on an archaeologist salary. I just don't. So I thought back to my experiences abroad, how much I excelled as a student overseas, and how much I just was enjoying life. And so I knew I had to apply overseas. I applied to 2 programs. Tübingen, Germany, there's one of the best archaeology programs in Europe. And then I applied to the University of Iceland. And that program was Viking and Medieval Norse Studies. And
got you, dude. Got you real good. Hooked you in.
Yeah. So I got admitted to both, and I had to consider where to go. But that year, Germany implemented not much, but minor tuition fees, whereas Iceland was still free. So, and with Iceland, it also offered it was a requirement of the program that you had to spend 1 semester overseas. So I was thinking, yo, dog, I like being overseas. So how about I go overseas while I'm overseas?
Double dipping.
Yeah. So yeah, I did my program there, and in the, I think it's been 6 years I've been traveling around Europe. I've seen so much. It's hard to believe how much I packed into that span of time.
Yeah, following your Facebook feed, was definitely interesting. Like just seeing all the places you were. Iceland's the craziest one for sure.
Yeah.
Like as far as like a scenic, landscape. I think probably the only place on par with it would maybe be like New Zealand, but yeah, Iceland's just freaking landscapes are gorgeous, man.
Yeah, Iceland it's a beautiful country. I enjoyed myself so much there, and I got so lucky.
Is there less than 1 million people that live there?
Yes. Last I checked, it's in the neighborhood of 380,000 on the whole island, and
God.
about 60% of that lives in the capital city, Reykjavik. Yep.
How do you pronounce that?
Reykjavik.
Reykjavik.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the studies I did, which were great. It was an interdisciplinary program, so I wasn't just doing Viking archaeology. I learned how to read and translate Old Norse texts, like what I have here. I got to handle medieval manuscripts.
All right, so hold on. What are these real quick?
Yeah, so
Let's see.
these are an antique edition of something called Fornaldarsogur.
Dude, these got some weight to them
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
Ain't no Kindle.
Nope. I want to have someday a decent antique book collection, and I wanted a set of what's called the legendary sagas. The Viking Age sagas are divided up into a few subcategories, and the legendary sagas are kind of like the old folk tales of the Vikings. The stories of legendary heroes, the mythology, not the mythology, that's usually in poems and the Eddas, but so this edition I found at a flea market in Reykjavik, and they were printed in, it's a first edition from 1943, and this has, one of the big reasons I had to get it was it had all the sagas I was hoping to find in Old Norse.
When was this printed?
1943.
This is from 1943.
Yes.
Dude, this looks like it was printed 2 weeks ago. It is in like immaculate shape.
And I tried to take care of them as well as I can. This has some exceptional. This has some of my favorite sagas in it. It has there's the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, which is popular now through the series Vikings. They've taken a lot of liberties with the story.
Well, you have to. It's Hollywood.
Yeah, and initially it was based on the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. There's also Volsunga saga, and which is a story about an ancient dynasty, and there's there's dragons, there's dragon slaying, there's all kinds of it's Tolkien takes a lot of his inspiration for The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion from Icelandic literature like this.
Yeah.
Also a lot from Old English, of course, but...
Well, as you said that, I see here Froda.
Yeah, Frodi?
Froda, with an A, it ends in an A.
Oh, Froda, yeah.
Froda.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you say, Tolkien.
Yeah.
Dude,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I had to get it because of... Yeah, and I have... Ragnar Saga Lothbrokar og Sona Hans. The saga of Ragnar Lothbrok and his sons.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I learned how to read and translate this. I'm fairly rusty these days, unfortunately, because I just haven't kept up on it, and with languages you use it or lose it. But
dude, I experience that with Spanish all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. But,
yeah, the only reason my Spanish is where it's at is because I'm one of the few Spanish speaking individuals at my work. So it's
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Þér angserk in sida og sámen fergivið heilen hug often or horsima granum und ægi ben blæða. And that's just a little passage of poetry which I don't have translated. I do have some that I had to translate while I was in grad school in this little notebook with different poems and sagas and such. So one of the hardest things I ever learned to do was Old Norse, or Old Icelandic is the technical name.
Well, coming from just, not speaking it right in that sense, but because I have heard that English is just one of the hardest languages to get down.
Not for the reasons I think that most Americans think it is. Grammatically, it's not that difficult. Mm-hmm. It's a Germanic language, and I'm delving into linguistics, and I apologize if everything is really technical tonight. Just let me know if I need to explain. But English is...
Oh, I will.
Yeah,
English and you will need
to. English is a Germanic language, and so it's related to, of course, German, Dutch, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and Icelandic. Way back in the day, when it was Old English, when England was separate kingdoms and the Vikings were around... Old Norse and Old English share a common root, and they were much closer than English and Swedish are now. You could speak with someone from Denmark after maybe a few weeks of spending time around them. That's how close the languages were back then.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then they diverged a bit. So English as a Germanic language, if you already know certain languages like German or Danish, constructing sentences and the grammar is not that difficult. What makes English difficult is generally the I won't use the technical term. How we spell things and how we say things is what makes it difficult.
Would that be phonograms?
Phonology. Yeah, phonology. Yeah, phonetics. I can't remember the I'm not a linguist.
Yeah.
But, so if I want to I'm currently trying to teach myself Swedish, and because I know Old Norse and a fair amount of German and English, Swedish comes to me very easily.
Okay.
Because I already know how to construct the sentences, and a lot of words look very familiar. That's different for someone like you knowing a Romance language like Spanish. It's you go back far enough, it has a common root as well, but it's a different family of languages. So it would be more difficult if someone from France wanted to just pick up Old Norse or pick up English, and they've never learned another Germanic language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. There are harder languages, and there are much easier languages than English.
Yeah, with what, Mandarin? Or what's the two languages in China? Is it Mandarin and Cantonese, or... What am I thinking?
Yeah, I think that's it. Cantonese. I'm not familiar with that region of the world, but I'm pretty sure it's Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah.
But I do know this about Chinese. There's also tons of regional dialects.
Yeah, well, you can imagine. I mean, China's so wild, dude. China spans like 5 or 6 time zones, but they only acknowledge one.
That's crazy to think about.
I think they acknowledge Beijing.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a trip. They have Mandarin on Duolingo. I might have picked it up for a day and then gave up.
Oh, dude, there's just so much. I think is it them or Japanese like the characters that are just like it's like
I think Japanese is well.
I feel like Japanese would actually be one of the easier of the Asian languages to pick up.
I think Japanese is the easier of the two. I think so, because Chinese is older. They exported... Well, here's the weird thing about Japanese is it's part of a different family of languages. It's not that closely related to Mandarin, but they imported the Chinese-style characters to Japan and adapted them to their language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that would make sense on why we think it's the same, just because they have kind of like the same figures.
Yeah. No, I mean writing systems. Well, for instance, in English we use Arabic numerals imported originally from the Arabic alphabet. We don't use Roman numerals anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
At least in mathematics, thank God.
Well, the Super Bowl does.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Most archaeologists have some sort of fossilized animal dicks around. You got one?
No,
I
haven't found one yet.
That...
I do look for animal parts in the desert. I try to find bones. If I can find bleached bones, I'm trying to find a good like cow skull or something. And you've seen I have tons of antler sheds that I found this summer. Well,
Yeah.
that was with assistance of my coworkers when I was in Tonto. My goal at the time was to make an antler chandelier, and I was having the hardest time finding the sheds. And so anytime someone from the crew found one, I'd take it back to camp with me.
Ain't that wild, dude? They shed that and grow one
Every year.
every year.
Yep.
Hold on, let me grab it real quick.
Yeah.
This seems wild. How old would this be? A buck? Is this?
Yeah.
Is this considered like a buck? Something a buck would have?
Yeah, that's an elk antler shed. I don't know how old, or I don't know the specifics on how you gauge antler, the individual who grows the antler. But I decided to come back, and I didn't quite have enough for the chandelier, so I made a candle holder, which is quite nice when I'm doing my office work.
That's a good plan B.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a solid 8 pounds right there.
Yeah, they're heavy pieces, and I'd be lugging that around for the rest of the shift, which is 10 hours. So, well, actually, no, not the rest of the shift, but it depended on how far from the truck we would be. Sometimes, in Tonto, we'd be away from the truck for 4 hours at times, so I'd be lugging that around for half the shift. In addition to a 35-pound pack with water and food and everything else I needed to do
To actually
field
survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and not just having it at the house to look cool.
Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Any like weird apparitions you've seen? Because I'm sure you come across some ancient grave sites. So where do you stand, sir?
I have a funny relationship with that sort of thing because in my training as an anthropologist, part of that was taking courses in traditional medicine and some psychology courses. So I kind of learned what the process of experiencing, at least what empiric science thinks is the process of experiencing the supernatural. So I learned about that sort of stuff, like rituals in different cultures, what a person experiences in a ritual, whether it's an intense ritual or if it's low impact, like going to church every Sunday, or if it's high impact, like if you're down in Brazil and you're way out in the Amazon and it's your like initiation ceremony for becoming a man. It's a really intense thing you go through. So I learned the basics of what a person experiences. So it kind of, in a sense, it almost takes the magic out of it for me. And I have never in my life experienced what I would absolutely call the supernatural.
Oh, you're just blind to it, Dain.
That works in my favor sometimes on sites with the construction workers because some of them do have I've spoken to quite a few who say, "Yeah, I'm glad you're here. We really don't want to stir up the juju with the spirits. If we bulldoze a grave, we don't want to stir up the juju because they'll say, on this one job we pulled up some guy's bones and then all the tractors started malfunctioning next week."
Oh man, yeah, and equate the two. Correlation.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that meme where it's like all the bad things that America's going through right now. You would think that it was built over an Indian burial ground.
Yes.
That's such a good line.
I'm part of this. There's a meme group on Facebook, which is probably my favorite page on Facebook, called I think it's called Archaeology and History Memes, or GTFO. And it's nothing but obscure history and archaeological humor.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like I would like to get into that and see how much of it just flies over my head.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites that comes up semi-regularly is it's this to get political for a second. It's a picture of this American couple at the Great Wall of China with Trump shirts.
Yeah.
And they're holding a sign that says "Walls Work." And then right underneath is this old painting of Genghis Khan, who famously conquered China and just went around the wall.
Yeah.
And it just says "Laughs in Mongolian."
That's so crazy. Didn't the wall take like 1,000 years to build?
Yeah, it wasn't a project that it wasn't. Everyone thinks of the Great Wall as the really touristy area that's kept up very well. Most of it is pretty run down and it's ruins. And that's been the case for a lot of China's history. There were sections of the wall that were little more than some stone stacked up. There were areas that were highly fortified, and everything in between.
Well, it's almost like the border wall that we've had now. Like, we leave some of that to like the rugged terrain that's there.
Yeah.
There's no clean wall going through. Like, if there's like the Rio Grande.
Yeah, exactly.
That, and just rugged mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going up and down mountains all last week in my truck. That got a bit hairy in some situations because they've got heavy machinery going up some of the mountains, and they're moving these panels that are 40 feet. They're about 18 feet tall, and they weigh several tons each, and they've got these cranes moving them around, and then there's dump trucks and cement trucks coming up over these steep berms, and I can't see them, so it got a bit hairy.
Is that one company handling all that, or is it a few? An amalgamation.
Whew, excuse me.
Is that the absinthe?
Yep. You breathe fire with that.
You're gonna see some apparitions now, man.
Yeah. There are different companies contracted to do. They do different jobs down there. So there's one company that's putting the wall up, and that's SWC in the area I was in. There's another company that's running the fiber optics and the power, because it's the wall, and then they've got lights behind it, and then I think they're setting up motion sensors. It's very Berlin Wall-esque to me. And after living in Berlin back in 2015, and then coming back, and then the wall started getting put up, it was a dilemma for some people in the archaeological community. Not too many, but I do know of one guy who quit a company because he wouldn't work on the wall.
Yeah.
But the way I had to look at it is, I as an individual am not going to stop this thing from going up. I might dislike it as much as I want to, but I could participate in making sure it was done semi-responsibly.
And that's the key. It's still if it's still going to go up because, beyond our power, you can at least ensure that, you're taking precautions to protect what's already there.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, the other thing is you can't save everything in archaeology. I've had other monitoring jobs where I've found some amazing things, like some stone axe heads at one project that's a development being turned into a subdivision. And it's an amazing artifact that I wish would be conserved, but the contract stipulates you just leave it there.
Wow.
And then it's up to the spirits what's going to happen to it with all the tractors going back and forth.
Is it true that if you're out, like, just walking in the wilderness and you find an arrowhead, that you're not supposed to take that?
That's absolutely true, and it's something that I think we as archaeologists should spend more of our time doing public outreach, because I don't think there's nearly enough done. So if you find artifacts, it's different on private property. The property rights, of course, it technically belongs to you. Thankfully, a lot of property owners I've worked with, particularly up in the Tonto National Forest area, there was one guy who owns a ranch, and he's got I think he said he had 3 pueblos on his property. There's a whole complex there. And the man was gracious enough to invite universities to do field schools at his property, excavate the whole thing, and he helped run the historic society where the artifacts were stored. So
cool.
There are some very good property owners that are caretakers of the culture they have on their property. But if you're out on state and federal land, you need to leave it there, because you have to think of it as it's not yours. It's the cultural history and it's the identity of the tribes that were here so much before us, way longer before us. And to them, in a certain respect, it's like you walking into someone else's house and just picking up a vase and walking out.
And be like, oh, I found it.
Yeah, I'm walking. Hey, I found it. I was walking. I found this. I'm all right. I'm taking it home. This is cool. So yeah, there's that aspect to it. And then there's also, for us as archaeologists, if you take it, it loses what we call context. So when we find something, hopefully it's going to be in the place that someone left it.
Yeah,
because then
you document
we can, yeah, because then we can make inferences about what was going on there. But if you just pick up on, like archaeologists did back in the day when they were the Indiana Jones type stuff, actually, that's a love-hate relationship. He just takes artifacts and doesn't do any work at the site. He just puts them in a museum. There's no value to an artifact if you don't take the time, if an archaeologist, I should say, doesn't take the time to document the context. And by people taking these artifacts, we can't do any research with it. It's taking away from the cultural heritage of the region, and it's taking away from the tribes.
Yeah, it's almost like a family heirloom.
Yeah.
Like it's like this book, say it wouldn't mean anything, you know. I want to say not to you because it means something to you, but like to some, like say to me,
it's a book.
It's just a book, right? But say it gets handed down, or you know, thousands of years go by, but there's a history to it of me passing it down to child, to grandchild, great grandchild, all that. Then there's some significance to it. So if you view it as an heirloom to that, to, you know, the people who this piece belonged to, instead of just an arrow out in the open, because you would think it's like, oh, it's just an arrow, oh cool, nobody's gonna know, like whatever, I'm just gonna take it, right? But once you kind of put in that context that, hey, just view it as a precious family heirloom, and then that can kind of hopefully relate to some people, where they're like, okay, let's kind of leave it there. Yeah,
and again, I think that there is something of a problem. This is just my opinion. I don't think the field of archaeology does enough public outreach. And sometimes sometimes at ASU they would do some events, but I think I think more can be done.
Yeah.
Than there is, and educate. I would, for example, I personally would love to be able to go to a primary or secondary school for a day and just tell kids about archaeology, tell them what I do, tell them about what they have here in Arizona, the cultural history of the region. And then, you know, it's like when, I don't know if you had this as a kid, but I know we had days where we talked about the environment and recycling and responsible stuff like that. If I could do that at schools around here, I'd be happy to, because I think that would go a long way to helping inform people and the next generation about responsible management of
I think that would totally be cool, because kids, and I'm speaking, you know, on me, like I was so into just walking in the desert and collecting rocks. Like I literally, like, there was a span of like 3 or 4 years as, you know, a young kid where I was like, I'm probably going to grow up to study rocks, because I was just collecting rocks like left and right. And what was it, like a year or two ago, me and we were down in Yuma with, you know, the kids, the family and everything. And we were walking. I just set out walking because I was like, looked at my wife. My wife grew up born in Chandler, raised in Mesa. So she's a city girl, as much as a city as you know, Mesa will make you. But I was like, as a kid, dude, I would just walk. I would just pick a direction and walk that way for 2 to 3 hours, and just look around, find animals, whatever. Yeah. So I was down there, and my aunt and uncle have like a decent sized property. So I was just like, I'm just going to walk out there. And my wife said, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just walking. She's like, for what? I was like, just to explore. Yeah. And one of the kids kind of saw me out there, and so they run out, and then the other one follows, and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just looking. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, what are you looking for? And I'm like, well, I'm just looking for cool rocks, looking at this. And they're like, oh, well, that looks like a cool rock. And then they all started collecting their own rocks. So like, it's an innate piece, like it's in our nature to do that, and I think kids would find that massively interesting. At least I did, and my kids did. So I don't know if that just rubs off from me. Yeah, but no, I think that once the levels, after we figure, you know, hopefully we figure out COVID and all that, that they allow, you know, speakers back into schools and whatnot. Like, you should definitely advocate, and you let me know what I can do, because that would be totally cool. Yeah, to get them on board. That was one of my favorite parts. I neglected to mention that in Iceland, my job for my graduate studies was working at a history museum called the Saga Museum.
probably the best job I've ever had. And you would go through, and the owner of the museum was an artist who decided to construct an artistic rendition of the medieval history of Iceland. You would go through, and he made these mannequins that were so lifelike. They kind of like Madame Tussauds, except he did it much better because he used silicone, which is slightly translucent, which made the figures look very real.
Yeah.
And you'd go through scenes from the Icelandic sagas, and it was some of my favorite times at that job were when kids would come through and, just how excited they were. And it was a fairly gory exhibit. I would have to... I usually didn't have to warn European parents. I mean, I did on principle, but 9 times out of 10, I'd tell a mother, like, hey, just so you know, this is a fairly graphic exhibition. And, she's like, what do you mean? Oh, well, there's images of war and it's the Vikings, so they were slaves and stuff. And she'd say, yeah, okay. A couple of North American families would, have to take the kids aside and then go through on their own.
Yeah.
But usually the kids would come out just having the time of their life. And I'll never forget this one. I think he was about 5 or 6, couldn't have been older than 6. And he comes up to the desk after the tour. And you know how kids are around, adults they don't know sometimes. They're a little shy. And he just says, excuse me, sir. Yeah? Were there megalodons in the ocean when the Vikings were alive?
Nice.
Yeah. I had to explain to him no, but that would be very cool if they did. And he says, okay. And he walks off. And I'm sitting there at the desk thinking, I got to write a metal song about this now.
Yeah.
This is like material for a 13-minute metal epic.
Yeah, the long drawn out intro.
Yeah.
Or
some cheap sci-fi films, Mega Shark versus Super Viking.
They're both metal for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I enjoy that aspect of being able to share archaeology with people, which is why I think I would like, if I can ever make it, I'd love to be a professor, and the teaching part of being a professor would be enjoyable, I believe.
So, I mean, I guess a path for you to become a professor at this point would involve, what would you have to just start cranking out like some research papers and...
Well, first I need to get a further degree. I would need a PhD.
Yeah.
That's a requirement, basically. And yeah, then while you're in your PhD, depending on where you go, Europe and the States do things slightly different. In the US, a PhD is a very long program. In archaeology, it can be 6 to 8 years for some people. Mm-hmm. In Europe, it's more focused. You don't have to do coursework as much unless you absolutely need to. You just do a research project.
Yeah.
You're supervised by a professor, and when you apply to the university, which is what I've done, I did it 6 times last year, write up a research project that you want to do, and the professor will just make sure you're doing it well. Mm-hmm. And you publish that. It's usually a book when you're done.
Yeah.
You'll publish that. And then generally you need to do, unless you do something really groundbreaking, you'll probably want to do what's called a postdoctoral research.
Yeah.
And it's like a streamlined PhD. You do a slightly smaller scale project, and the university will pay you to come and just do research for them.
Gotcha.
Do maybe 1 or 2 of those, and then you get a professorship.
So PhD, pretty hard degree, is that what it stands for? What's it stand for?
Yeah.
We all say it like a PhD, but I don't really know what it stands for.
Doctor of Philosophy.
So why does the PH come first?
It's Latin.
Of course.
I can't remember the exact Latin phrase. I guess I can Google it real quick. Uncle Google knows all.
Yeah, you can find out.
Yeah. But usually it's a research degree. Philosophy. Yeah, Philosophia Doctor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
It's a degree that was pioneered in Germany in the 19th century. That's where the PhD, as we do it now, was kind of constructed and formulated. But it's a difficult degree. And
yeah, 6 to 8 years of anything, man. Shit.
Yeah, and you're not... If you're in the U.S., well, for most students, you're not making much money. You'll get paid, but unless you get extremely lucky and land the mother lode with funding, you're going to be living as a student.
You just got to research dick pills, dude. That's where the money's at.
The money is not in archaeology. Sadly, it's a humanities. It's classified as humanities, which is kind of weird to me in a sense, because we do all kinds of hard science in archaeology, but it's still considered a humanities. So my master's thesis, I did a project. I did the lab work in Denmark while I was abroad, and I did isotope research on bone material. What I was doing is using stable nuclear isotopes, traces of them, in bone collagen to figure out what the Vikings were eating, what their diet was in Aarhus, Denmark.
Come on, dude. And what year this bone marrow? How old is it?
Bone collagen. So bones, there's two parts to bones. There's the calcium, which makes them really hard and tough. But what makes them really durable is the spongy tissue called the collagen.
Gotcha.
And so there's a process where we would take the archaeological bone material, and I was taking fish, domesticated animals, and we had 3 human bones, and we take a little sample of the bone and we run it through a chemical process. We put it in hydrogen chloride HCl, to demineralize it, to get rid of the calcium, so you're just left with the spongy material.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we melt the spongy material and break it down to its base components. And then we send it over to a nuclear lab where they shoot it through a mass spectrometer and analyze all the chemical elements of it.
I've heard all these terms, but it's still kind of like foggy.
Yeah. So to break it, to put it in layman's terms, the idea behind it is you are what you eat.
Yeah, that's the truth, man.
Yeah. So if I spend my life eating if most of the meat I eat is fish, that's going to show up to a degree in the isotope signature of the bones. And there's different ways to look at it as well. There's you can also look at how carnivorous something is.
Yeah.
Through nitrogen content in your bones. So that was my thesis project, was to examine the diet of Aarhus Vikings using stable nuclear isotopes. That's, by all accounts, pretty hard science.
Yeah, hell yeah, it is.
But it's still classified as a humanities. So certain funding, we just don't qualify for certain funding. STEM is the sexy term, and the research fields that are getting most of the funding, and also when you get out, that are getting highly paid. So, but I'm fairly lucky that I still love my job. And
good,
and
well, you have to love it. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
That's the idea. I mean, if people, hey, STEM pays, so I'm gonna do STEM, but it's not your passion. It's like, you're miserable. It's just like any other job at that point. Yeah, you might be doing something that's really noble and whatnot, but you're still not. I don't even want to say living life properly, because I don't want to, be all high and mighty and whatnot. But yeah, it's like if we could all operate in that sense. But I actually had that. Oh my god, dude! I threw on a video of Jimi Hendrix, playing Voodoo Child live. I think it was in Maui, so it was a little awkward because it's like Maui. I was hoping it was Woodstock, but still seeing him, I was like, wow, like look at this guy, dude, just up there ripping it like no one has ever seen before,
right?
And like literally like teary eyed, watching this go down, just like thinking about the point in time and what he meant and what he means now. And then I was thinking, like, yeah, for this person, because people would say to like a musician or somebody maybe studying the humanities, it's like, well, you should have done something that actually gets you paid, this and that. And it's like, but look at this individual. Like, this is what this person was born to do. There's people that are born to be, the straight and forward, your bait, people that push numbers and crunch papers and whatnot. Like, there's people made for that. Like, and in all essence, like my thought was literally like, they should be totally fine with being able to fund a person like Hendrix to just go and create art because of what I was feeling in that moment. I was feeling so much like just chills, my eyes were watery, and I was just like, wow.
Some places do.
Yeah.
There was a lot of differences in culture being overseas in these different areas and seeing some fairly stark differences between American culture and European cultures over there at times. I think depending on where you're at, I think a lot of those places do value the arts quite a bit more than we do. Mm-hmm. Art is still a product in the U.S. Like, for an artist, well, everyone needs to make money, even over, no matter where you are in the world, you need to make money. But I feel like aesthetics and the arts are valued a bit more in Europe because they have a long history of doing so. The Medicis financed some of the greatest works of art in the Western world during the Renaissance. And, these days in Europe, you can apply for an artist visa. If you show your portfolio of art, you can apply for a visa to go to France or Germany or Italy or somewhere, and you can be a street artist. If they judge that you have a good body of work and that you have ability to support yourself, they'll let you come in and just be an artist. And I would see there was all kinds of great stuff in Germany. There was graffiti in Berlin, especially. There was graffiti on everything. And there's certain attitudes to graffiti here. And the way I describe Berlin as a city to people was it's a really dirty city. There's garbage on the streets, there's graffiti, there's street art on everything, but it's dirty in a sexy way. and I'd be walking the streets and there would be guerrilla, they used to call it guerrilla sculpture, where someone would make a piece of sculpture out of metal scraps or something, and they would chain it to a light post and then just leave it there for the public to enjoy. Then it'd be taken down eventually if it was in the way. But yeah, I think the arts just aren't quite appreciated as much as they could be over here.
And it's so wild because we literally live to experience art, whether it's a book, a movie, music, a TV show. Like, we live to experience and take in somebody's creative, works of art.
Yeah, that's really kind of what I mean by art being a product here. It's a blockbuster. It's a number one hit on the top 40. It's a $10 million masterpiece on the art market. It's a product, and that puts it out of the reach of a lot of people. Well, not. I should say the fine arts. It puts some of the fine arts out of reach for people because it's kind of held up to be this. You got to pay to go to an art gallery. You've got to the art. What are they called? Auction houses. They're selling pieces for millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. It's a commodity, and art should be appreciated for art's sake. Actually, to go back to the humanities, there was a fantastic poster we had in the anthropology department, which I think demonstrated the value of the humanities very well. And it said, science can teach you how to clone dinosaurs. Humanities can teach you why this might be a bad idea.
Yeah, like the Goldblum.
Yeah,
quote.
Exactly. Yeah.
We were so occupied.
You were so occupied if you could that you never stopped to think if you should.
If you should.
Yeah, something like that.
But that's humans.
But he was a mathematician. That's the funny part about that.
That's true. He's all douchey with his
low
or deep V shirt. But that is humans. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
We push the envelope of what's possible.
Yeah. We as musicians, it's what we love to do, to make something new, to make something our own. Yeah. Distinct.
Yeah. Well, and then just in nature, like, people are always trying to figure out, what is the actual human limit? Like, how fast can we be? How much can we lift? Like, I tell people, like, working at the music store, it's like, oh, we got 6 strings. Oh, well, what about a 7 string? Okay, well, here's a 7 string.
Does it gent?
What about 8 string? Yeah. We're just always pushing the envelope.
Yeah,
like,
I remember when 8
string.
strings started coming out.
And then it's like, well, now I need a 9 string. And it's like...
Is that a thing?
I mean, no. 8 string for sure is... There's a few models in store. But yeah, I think
there was that
what
was his name, Jared Diamond's 12-string special or something for a while.
Why? I mean, well, 12 string in the sense of, it harmonizes. Okay,
yeah,
cool. But this was, the 6, 7, or the 7 and 8 strings are literally an extra string to get you a deeper or higher note.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I always thought. It gave you a bit more, it gave you a chunkier bottom end.
Yeah, well, I think Korn was one of the first bands to really popularize, the 7 strings and being just heavy tuned. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's just humans in nature. We're always going to push the envelope of what's possible. Freaking Eric Baumgartner or something like that. The guy that skydove, from the highest point ever. Like we're always going to push the envelope.
Yeah. I kind of miss that as a musician. Actually, the drive to be a better drummer, to improve myself constantly. Would be nice to get back into that.
So you haven't drummed in
no
6 years?
I had a choice to make when we met, and I was a plucky community college student working at Guitar Center. My identity was I was a musician first, and I was a musician going to college. I wanted with every fiber of my being to be in a successful touring band. I mean, I operated under no delusions that I'd be rich, that I'd be the next, I don't know, Linkin Park or whatever. Yeah, whoever's hip these days. But I wanted to be like Dave Lippman. He was a gigging musician who paid his bills, and he did Guitar Center as a side job for some spending cash.
Yeah,
I wanted that. But when I finished my bachelor's degree, I had a choice to make, and that was going overseas. At the time, my drum kit was the 7-piece Green Beast. and a full set of Pisces signature cymbals. Still got my Warlord snare. That was one thing I didn't get rid of. But I couldn't take that with me overseas. And I decided then that I was not going to... Being a musician was not my identity anymore.
Yeah.
I was now a scholar. If I was going to go on and I was going to be serious about it, I was going to be a researcher and a scholar first, and then a musician, rather than being a musician who went to college.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big fucking pep talk to have with yourself.
Yeah, it was. It was tough because not just obviously a huge personal investment and a big part of my life because I played since I was 14 or 15. The financial investment was huge. I probably put close to $8 or $9 grand into that set over the years.
Yeah.
But actually, that being said, strangely enough, I was okay with it when I sold all my gear, with the exception of this. Oh, I have the snare, and then I have the first guitar I ever got. My dad bought it for me my junior year when I told him I wanted to not just be a drummer, but be a musician, and I wanted to learn guitar. So, most parents will come in at Christmas and get like the Ibanez special or the Squire starter pack.
Yep.
My dad said, "No, if you want to play guitar, do you want to play guitar?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." All right, then I'm going to buy you a guitar, and he bought me a Stratocaster. Yeah. It wasn't like it wasn't a $1,200 American series, but it's still plays. It's a decent playing Mexi Strat, and to this day, I still have it, and I won't get rid of it. But
nice.
I was okay with getting rid of most of it. I shifted my mentality, actually. I changed a lot because, the average American family, it's about buying things and setting up your cozy place, your home, and making your homemaking. Yeah, it's back to Fight Club. It's the IKEA nesting instinct. But for me, when I started going overseas so much, by necessity, I had to adapt an attitude of minimalism, which I still have to this day. Even when it comes to drums, like when I wanted to buy that kit earlier this year, I'll never buy anything I can't walk away from. So that's why I was kind of okay with selling the kit.
Yeah, because you get tied to those possessions, and then you become limited.
Yeah,
because of that.
Yeah. If I had to, let's say, because I currently apply to jobs overseas here and there when I can, it's very low likelihood I'll get anything, but my eventual goal is to go back overseas. If I got a call tomorrow that a museum wanted me in, I don't know, Amsterdam or something, I could get rid of everything I have except a few things to put into. Everything I need will fit into a backpack and a suitcase, and everything else I can sell if I need to.
Yeah,
or just throw away.
Oh shit!
But
not even like a little storage unit.
Well, I do have a memory chest that I got a few years back. My stepfather made it for me, and I had things I wanted to keep around because my dad has one from when he has stuff from when he was in the Marines and high school and college. And when I was getting to the end of my undergrad, I thought it'd be nice to have some stuff for the really important things. So I have that. That I would put into storage.
Gotcha.
But everything else,
just go.
Yeah,
just go so I can live the life that I was afforded. Or you're having the opportunity to live instead of being tied down again to those possessions because, I can't go because I have these things.
Well, and it's also always a shoestring budget, which is a huge something I'm constantly trying to educate Americans about when it comes to travel. I think there's still this cliche idea that traveling to Europe is this luxury thing that you do. You think about you and I, we would think about Home Alone, where the rich parents are taking everyone to Paris for Christmas, and Paris is this really expensive, exotic place to go to.
Yeah,
it's really not that expensive to travel overseas if you want to, but I still travel on a shoestring budget. So, for instance, I went on a spring vacation trip, or what was my spring vacation in graduate school in Iceland. I had a week off, and I spent $75 on a plane ticket to fly to Prague and back to Iceland. And then I spent $10 a night at a hostel, staying in a 10-bedroom dorm. And then I maybe spent another, I think I splurged, and I spent $200.
Wow.
And that was on tours, absinthe, museums, the works.
Yeah, absinthe.
So you as an American can travel very cheaply if you know how to do so. There's these little travel hacks that you can do. If you're okay with flying cattle class and you don't need a really nice seat on a plane, you can find these flights out to London. You want to go to, London's expensive. That's the other thing. You need to not go to the major destinations because those are always expensive.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go to a smaller town like, where?
Westham.
Yeah, maybe
Liverpool.
Okay, go out to York or Liverpool or one of the smaller communities that's not London, not Edinburgh, and not Manchester. It'll be cheaper for you. And this goes for anywhere else on the continent. If you get out of the major capital cities, it gets much cheaper.
Yeah, it's like flying into LA or flying into Santa Monica or something. I don't know.
And there's alternative avenues too, like couch surfing. There's a huge international community of couch surfers, which I was a part of while I was in Iceland. And what that entails is a person, it's like a social networking site. You'll make a profile. Here's who I am. Here's what I like to do. Here's where I live. Here's what I can offer people who want to stay with me.
Gotcha.
And then as a traveler, you'll do the same. You'll have the same profile, but you'll say, as a traveler, I can cook you some food from my home country. I can tell you about what, Arizona is like and this and that. And you can find these people to stay with for free. I did it in London. I stayed with this woman from Greece and her roommate. I think he was also from Greece, and they were living in London together, and they just let me stay at their flat. And I got to go out. I think it was actually on layover for a few days. And all I did was just share a conversation with them. Don't be boring. And they were great. And vice versa. I loved hosting people from all over the world. I still have friends from, first guy I hosted was from Lebanon. He bought me as a gift, as a token, this really nice Norse mythology book gold leaf pages, amazing artwork, and I still have it. Other people who stayed with me, I had, who was it? There was I think it was the two photographers from Russia stayed with me, bought me my Iceland mug, and I'm still friends with both of them. And so you can get around very cheap, and that's the most important thing I try to drive home to Americans with travel is meet people from different walks of life, see something new, and you'll walk away with a much different perspective on the world.
Definitely. I don't know how many times I've mentioned that on this podcast, but that's what I hope my kids do. Instead of going to college, go travel for 2 years. If they want to, I mean, obviously, hey, if you have it dead set in your sights what you want to do, then yeah, for sure, pursue it. But I would implore you to go travel, because that's gonna teach you the most about the world, putting you in those real situations firsthand. But also, I think it teaches you a lot about yourself. Having to persevere in another country.
It does. Yeah. You have to learn responsibility, how to look out for yourself, how to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think the deepest lesson you learn in travel is empathy. And as Americans, and it's not necessarily our fault. Most people don't have a lot of money, mm-hmm. and this is a huge country. When I tell people overseas, I just drove 7 hours and I'm still in the same state. Yeah. They think, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I can drive 40 minutes into the Netherlands, then another 15 minutes into Belgium.
Just like that, yeah.
So, and that's important these days, especially with, to kind of come around, I guess, to current events. I think learning empathy for people in different parts of the world is especially important these days, because it does seem like people are more closed off.
Yeah.
People are...
we're so scared. That's what happens when you're scared.
Yeah, people are scared. And to go back to, like, when I was in Germany, when people were thinking of the migration crisis, they were thinking of... most people wouldn't say it, but the subtext is they're letting terrorists into Europe.
Yeah, of course.
And that's... Maybe there's a few people who get in who are going to commit something, mm-hmm. but then for every one bad actor, you have so many quality people that you can meet that have their own stories that will give you the shirt off their back if they can,
because they've been in that position.
Yeah. That's how I am these days. Funny enough, with Spain, I didn't have any kind of work permit. I was working for cash in a Spanish-speaking country, and I didn't speak any Spanish. And growing up, my first job out of high school was at a local gas station. And when I was a lot younger, I had that attitude that a lot of people in Arizona have, where you think, why can't this guy just speak English? You're in America, man. Speak English.
Yeah, of course.
And I had that attitude until I found myself in Spain, not knowing Spanish, working without a permit.
Yeah.
So I can never judge a migrant again.
Yeah, and dude, migrants have so much just courage and determination to get. I mean, essentially, you were a migrant in that sense. Yeah.
So I really identify with, I have, in comparison to people who do have to leave.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't fleeing any kind of violence. I wasn't fleeing any kind of real persecution. For me, it was a bit different. I was just trying to improve my prospects, because my economic background was not very... It didn't do me any favors when it came to getting ahead in life, and I just was looking for places where it was easier. Kind of like when Europeans used to come over here. They wanted a place that was more... that would give them a better chance at a good life. That's what I was looking for. But despite that, I totally identify with the migration, with the migrant mindset of doing everything you possibly can to try to get somewhere where you can, where things can be better. And that's why I think Americans should go abroad, because then they can meet people different from them, mm-hmm. and understand what it's like coming from a background where you don't necessarily have a secure government. Obviously, I don't want to advocate people go into unsafe countries, but to an extent, in my travels, I spent one night piss drunk in St. Petersburg, Russia. And if there was anywhere I was going to be in danger, it was probably there. And in all my experience, as long as you're just not being boastful, you're not being
an arrogant American prick.
Yeah. If you're not being that guy and you're being low key, you're being respectful of the culture, you're going to be fine.
That's where it comes down. It's just the respect.
Yeah.
The respect. And respect is earned both ways.
It is.
And you would think as, I'm an American, goddammit, and it's like, dude, you cannot just go into, another country and just, pull that card
that
out.
way.
Yeah.
That is fairly rare, thankfully. But my first job in Iceland was actually bartending at a whiskey bar, which the Americans would frequent constantly.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, getting to be on the other, to literally be on the other side of the bar, at a touristy location where Americans were frequenting, and seeing the different types of American travelers, because that was no, I think when I left, we were not even a full year. Yeah, maybe a little over a year into the current administration. And there were some people coming in who, most people were just pretty normal. They'd buy their drinks. They'd have some they were really curious about foreigners. Hey man, where are you from? And oh yeah, I'm from Colorado. I'm out here with my wife, and they want to meet people. But occasionally you would get the outliers, which were always entertaining. You would get what most people are ashamed to think of, which is the boastful American. I want some American whiskey. I'm here in Iceland, but I need my Jack Daniels. You know what But the flip side of that, which was almost cringier to me in a sense, would be the American apologists.
Oh, yeah.
They'd come in, I'm so sorry about what's going on right now. This is not me. This is not us. I'm really sorry. And most of them thought I was Icelandic, and they had no question in their mind that this guy is a local. And I'm just sitting here silently judging, thinking, I don't care. And that would be the attitude of a lot of Icelanders or any international in that situation. I don't care.
Well, to have that thought is almost like almost narcissistic, to be like, you care so much about our politics that I have to apologize for it.
Yeah. Like my gesture is going to solve it.
Yeah.
No. Most of the time, though, Americans abroad, it was 9 times out of 10, more than that, 99 times out of 100, a positive experience. There are very few Americans who head out who I think who make fools of themselves. Very few, thankfully.
Well, and when you get liquored up, I mean, shit. Who knows?
Well, that's a bit different. That was Iceland was a wild place for that too, because liquor, any alcohol, is so much more expensive than it is here. You have to buy everything at a liquor store like you do at some states here. Yeah. But if I wanted to go buy 1 liter of Smirnoff vodka, it would put me back $80.
Damn, $80 US?
Yes. Woo. Happy hour beers at the student bar would be about $4 or $5, and then after happy hour that would jump up to 9 or 10. And then at the other bars that didn't offer student discounts, it would be more expensive. So it almost encouraged binge culture, because you would think, if I'm going to buy a drink, I better make it worth it.
You better, yeah. I do that, where it's like, oh, if it's happy hour, or if you go to a sporting event, those drinks are so expensive, where it's like,
so you pregame.
Yeah, you pregame, or usually what I'll do is I'll just go buy two very strong drinks and slam them real quick.
Yep.
And then just kind of ride the wave, instead of buying one, sipping on it, and then going another and buying and sipping on that one.
Yeah.
Just bang them out. and then ride the wave.
Yeah, we would go to I had a group of friends in my program. We were all metalheads. Actually, this was a hilarious thing about Viking and medieval studies. We figured out who everyone in the program was before we even had our official department meeting. We were walking around campus. Anytime I saw a guy with a beard and tattoos, or a woman with dark hair, a lot of tattoos and piercings, and wearing black, or people with leather jackets, you could generally pick out the people doing Viking studies, and I am 100% guilty of that.
I fit the role.
Yeah. So we had each other picked out, but we used to go out to the student bar all the time. They had a whole institution for our program called Medaldastofa. It was a medieval lecture where they'd invite professors from different countries. If they did anything related to medieval studies, they'd come give a lecture. It was open to the whole university, but we as the department were not required, but kind of expected to go. Mm-hmm. But then afterwards, our professors would have the business meeting where we'd go to the bar and get drunk with them.
Yeah.
Again, because the beer was so expensive, you just decided I have to put a few back.
Yeah.
Or if we go to concerts, I went to metal shows probably every other weekend while I was there. You'd show up 5 minutes before happy hour ended, and it's not an hour. Happy hour there is like from 5 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. And then we'd show up at 8:58 and buy 3 beers.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what the term is, but I had kind of had my mind blown by this this quote in a book. It might have been Atomic Habits. I'm trying to remember, but it was referring to how civilizations can become more prosperous faster that are horizontally what's the word I'm looking for? Oriented.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. What was the title you think it is?
I don't remember what
it wasn't.
What the
Guns,
phrase.
Germs, and Steel, was it?
No,
because that's a famous one.
I want to say the book I was reading was called Atomic Habits.
Gotcha. Okay.
I feel like that's
that is an idea I've heard of before. I can't say I've read any academic literature that lends credence to it, but I have heard of this idea that Eurasia was set up to be more prosperous because it's easier to stay in the same environmental climate as you travel, rather than North and South America or in Africa, where you have to traverse a lot of environments and changes in climate. That I don't know, but I will say this: I think there's a popular misconception about what's considered an advanced civilization.
Oh yeah, what do we got?
Yeah. So there's a city down by
the Bay,
Mexico City, that I need to go see. I think it's on most archaeologists' short lists. It's called Teotihuacan. And it's this massive stone city with several of the largest pyramids on Earth on it. It's got the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Serpent, and the Pyramid of the Moon. And then large apartment complexes. We don't know a whole lot about the civilization. We're learning more year by year, but we haven't deciphered any of their written culture. We don't necessarily know who they were or where they came from, at least as far as I've read into the literature. So it is a bit of a mystery, and Teotihuacan, the name, comes from the Aztecs, because they came across the city after the civilization had collapsed.
Oh, wow.
And that translates in Nahuatl to City of the Gods, Nahuatl being the language of the Aztecs. So this city at its height was... I don't know the population figures, but I know this. At its peak, London did not reach the population level that Teotihuacan had at its peak until it was well into the 16 or 1700s.
Wow.
That's how big it was. And the architecture that went into this, and not just Teotihuacan, but cities all over the Americas. There's down in South America, the Inca cities, even in the Southwest, just here in our backyards. The Phoenix valley was cultivated and was engineered by people long before European colonizers ever came here. The Salt River Project is based on an old Native American canal system, and we still find canals. When I was on an excavation in downtown Phoenix, we found a canal going through part of the site.
In downtown Phoenix?
Yep.
What?
Yep. There's a lot that they were going to develop into a building. And in one of the phases of archaeological investigation, they found indications that there were probably artifacts and structures underneath. So we went in and did the excavation before they got a permit to be able to build on top of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we found 5 houses, a canal, several burials, tons of artifacts, stone tools, pottery, all kinds of stuff. So there's a misconception about this idea of advanced civilization. Trade networks, all the highlights of quote-unquote advanced civilization existed in the Americas. It's just that metallurgy never caught on. And there's an interesting theory about this that I had to learn about. I did this whole class on it called Evolution of Technology at ASU. There's this idea in culture theory and technological theory that once you're so far down a path with technology, it becomes more difficult to switch to something new than to keep developing. So for Eurasia that had metal age, that went to metallurgy is a complex process. It's insanely complex, and for copper, before we learned how to make bronze and then learned how to use iron, copper and processing it is toxic. So you have to learn how to do it safely. You not only have to learn how to process sand into the how to smelt it into usable, not slag, but usable material, and not kill yourself with the toxic chemicals that are the byproducts.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, the stone tool industry was so advanced in some respects that with obsidian blades are sharper than surgeon scalpels. And I find obsidian all the time on projects, obsidian tools. They're still sharp.
And that's lava?
Yeah, it's lava glass. So actually, Game of Thrones, the dragon glass, that is obsidian.
So lava glass, though, how does that... Is it just because it gets so hot and then... Because what's the difference between... How do you get lava glass, but then what's the other lava rock called?
Well, that I don't know because I'm not a geologist. I took some geology.
Well, we'll pick this podcast up after you get your geology PhD.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, but I think the glass is a product of rapid cooling.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it for now.
Well, yeah, we can Google it later.
Nah, I don't. That kind of ruins a little bit of the, I don't know, of like just
conversation.
Conversation.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. I had a discussion with someone about that, gone are the days where you could say something. Now there's some asshole in the conversation. It's like, yeah, let me Google that, make sure.
Oh, well, actually, like that.
Well, actually.
Fuck that guy. And sometimes it's me.
I am
Fuck
that.
me.
I am that guy a lot, dude.
We all are.
I hate it sometimes.
When it's something that it's like, well, actually, have you tried it this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you want, you still have the absinthe or?
No, this is the Maker's Mark.
The Maker's Mark. I might try some of the Scotch, actually.
I want to tap into that little bad boy.
Yes, the Ardbeg.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Yeah, it's an Islay single malt Scotch. This one is a 10-year, and I'm partial to Scotches that are very smoky,
peaty,
and very peaty.
Yeah.
Yes. Working at a whiskey bar for a while, I didn't pick up as much as I wish I had, but I picked up a bit. I never had a taste for fine booze when I was at Arizona State because I was impoverished,
I'll take a little bit.
Yeah. Here, I got you. Yeah, I worked full-time at Guitar Center as a department manager, and I was still just paying... Just tell me when.
That's good.
Yeah. I was just making enough to pay rent and buy groceries, and that was it. So
Ooh,
if I
God damn, dude.
Ooh, good stuff.
That's as peaty as they get.
Yes. So I finally got a taste for fine liquor after I dated a Danish woman while I was in Aarhus. And she had a wine cabinet, she had a Scotch collection, and that was great. She introduced me to my favorite distillery, Highland Park. And since then, I've just been trying them out. And once I finally got a taste for finer things, so to speak, I started exploring Scotches.
Yeah. So you say this is a 10-year?
Yep.
Where is this distilled? Is that the term, right?
Yeah. This bad boy is distilled in...
I told you to bring out the exotic shit, so... That reminds me of the flight
South
I had.
coast of Islay.
South coast
Yep.
of Islay.
Yep, the islands in Scotland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good stuff. I prefer a really strong Scotch like that. You can take it if you want. The different ways to drink Scotch, you can have it on the rocks. What I sometimes like is to just put a drop or two of water in it because it mellows it out ever so slightly.
Yeah, that's what Austin had said on the podcast. That we had.
Yeah.
You just gotta watch, dude. It's like 4 hours of us just getting essentially blitz because he's like, oh, try this one, and then it's like 2 to 3 ounce pours, and it's all 80 to what's barrel proof?
Yes,
I think that's like
well, they go by
strong.
percentages over. Well, I'm not sure about the British system, but the pretty much everyone in Europe goes by percentages, and especially with beer, this is why Europeans complain about American beer.
What's the complaint about American beer? It's too weak.
Yeah, because we measure it in alcohol by gravity, which means it's alcohol by weight. Alcohol is a different weight from water. They measure it in alcohol by volume, which means, in so much space, so much of this is going to be alcohol. But because we measure it in weight, it's lighter. So it's weaker beer in comparison.
Yeah. I just cannot do beer, dude.
I had to lay off for a while because I don't know if it's a product of just getting older and moving out of my 20s and into my 30s, but when I moved to Iceland, I started having the worst hangovers of my life.
Ooh, yeah.
And we always joked that's because we were drinking the cheap beer in Iceland is Gull. That's the local brewery.
It's the sound of you throwing up, bro.
Yeah. Or we would also drink Tuborg, which is a Danish import. And the two beers, we would affectionately call it the piss of the gods.
Yeah, there you go. Instead of the nectar of the gods.
Yeah. The next morning, I'd wake up and my head felt like a howitzer was going off all morning. So I laid off it for a while when I got back. That's not why, actually. The reason why is when I got back, going back to the difference in beers, I would be here with my stepdad and we'd knock back tons of like Natty Ice and Natty Light. And to me, it felt like drinking water. I wasn't getting drunk and I'd just be hungover the next day.
Ugh.
So, yeah, I switch these days. It's wine. Once in a while, I'll do craft beer and then whiskey and Scotch.
Nice. Yeah, I'm all liquor all day, every day. Well, no, I stopped buying alcohol for the house.
Yeah,
because I was just going through it too, just like you said, like water.
Yeah, for me, what I notice is I was worried for a while I was becoming an alcoholic, but I do know that in comparison to a lot of people who are, they have to go to treatment, I don't drink that much, but to me, I worry because I have a lot of extended family members who have had to be in the program.
Yeah.
But what I notice is it's an oral fixation. So for some people, it's smoking. Other people, it's chewing tobacco. For me, it's drinking liquids. And it doesn't have to be beer. I just notice that if I have beer in the fridge, I want to sip on beer. And I figured this out years ago when I was still working at a gas station, because I was working night shift and I was always sipping on soda. Always. I always had a 40 ounce that I was sucking down all night. And I switched. I think it was a second year into this job. I made a conscious effort to switch to drinking water. And I was filling up a cup of water every 15, 20 minutes. And I was drinking so much water that I had a drug test and I failed it twice because it was so diluted.
Whoa.
Because I'm just always sipping on liquids if they're available. So I don't keep beer in the fridge for that reason.
You can fail a drug test from drinking too much water?
Well, it's technically not a fail, but they'll say you need to retake it because it's diluted. They can't tell what's in it.
Yeah.
But that I haven't had a drug test since 2010, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been working at Guitar Center since 2009.
Oh, God, yeah. We used to joke about that. If they actually drug tested, they'd have to fire half the workforce.
Half, bro? More like 99.
No, on the first day.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, no, for sure.
Musicians, man, it was a wild. I think I was there on the tail end of what... There's that Facebook group, I Survived the Golden Age, the golden days of Guitar Center. And yeah, I think I was there on the tail end of that because I still remember some of the holiday parties of smoking doobies with the regional manager and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, that stuff happens.
Yeah. Well, it's the same in a lot of industries. Field sciences. I mean, they're all partiers.
I would imagine too that they probably partake more in psychedelics.
I've never actually seen that in the field, but it's fairly
they
common.
would have like experience with it.
Yeah, I've heard stories of certain conferences, and that the conferences are where all the partying goes down.
Yeah,
research conferences. We all get together, we share our research, and then we party at night and just get trashed. Yeah. There's one called PECOS. It's a Southwest Archaeology Conference, and I've heard stories of what it was. In the 80s and 90s, there'd be people tripping balls.
That's
on
before
mushrooms.
The internet. No shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're like legends now. But I've been to a few conferences, and those are always fun. I think the highlight was after my master's degree, I got to present my research at the Pan-European Archaeology Conference. It was called the European Association of Archaeologists, and they had the annual meeting in Bern, Switzerland. I actually stayed with Johnny that you interviewed on the other podcast.
Yeah, Johnny and Reg?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, they were great
Shout
people.
out to Upper Strata.
Yeah, definitely check them out. They invited me out. I got to stay with them. They showed me around the city. Great people to stay with.
So cool, man. Yeah. Did he cook for you too? Because isn't he he's a pretty good cook, right?
Yeah. I would stay again. Actually, if you and the family can get out there anytime, I would stop by and say hi. They're great people.
I think he mentioned that for sure. He's like, anytime you guys are coming down.
Yeah. So I got to present my research in Bern, Switzerland. It was amazing. I stayed in an Airbnb just down the street from a castle, and the party was just nuts because I wore my suit to give my lecture. Not everyone does, but I like to look good when I'm presenting stuff.
Wait, so do you have it erect or no? We talking about?
Yeah.
People don't know what we talking about. And Dain is famous for his mohawk. What?
I still got it.
What length is it?
I got it. I have it tied up right now, but I think it's at arm's length. I'm basically doing the Samson right now, and I will not cut my hair for fear of losing my powers.
Yeah, no shit, dude. You shouldn't, for sure.
I haven't spiked it since. I think I spiked it once since I've been back. I don't do it like that as much anymore. I did spike it at. We had a department holiday party in Denmark.
Yeah.
I wore my suit. I had my hair spiked.
Yeah.
And the professors, the department chairs, they were loving it. It was so funny.
How can you not, man? It's dude, this thing is huge. This thing is like a good, elbow to fingertip length.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw you driving with it. It was the funniest thing. You're like this. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, because I was driving that little Ford Ranger compact pickup. And
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great, man.
Oh man, I had to use the mirrors. I had to twist the mirrors in all kinds of weird directions so I could see to the left and right. That was always a sketchy drive over.
Luckily, it wasn't too far. But so you were in your best dress, your Sunday best.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had that more over here, to be honest, because there's still a lot of situations, at least that I've been in. I can't speak for every person over there. I'm kind of running in certain circles in academia at universities, but there are still occasions where you're expected to present yourself in an not appropriate, I should say, in a dress to the nines,
yes,
so to speak. And at the holiday party, guys were in suits, the ladies wore dresses. Everyone was looking good, having a great time. But I wanted to put a spin on it, so I spiked my hair up.
Yeah.
I stopped. I kind of had to give up on it this year because I really don't have anyone to impress. And
yeah, you're not supposed to be out and about. So.
Yeah, it's not conducive to field lifestyle either, obviously.
No.
When I was working at the museum, I would braid it all the time. I had the whole Ragnar Lothbrok thing going on with the double braids going back and then the braided ponytail. So that was great for business. The customers loved that.
Yeah.
But these days I can't even be bothered to braid my hair. I had to start growing the sides out, which is why that's why it looks a little funky, because I was taking a razor to it every few days for about 4 years straight, taking it right up to the line. So slowly I'm cutting into it, and
gotcha.
I've done it. I did it once before, right after undergrad. There's been 2 times where I just have to start widening it and letting it grow out. So that's why it's shorter on the sides. But I've been curious to try doing a tri-hawk.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can do little spikes. I can do little spikes on the sides. And
almost like Liberty spikes?
Yep, little Liberty spikes on the sides, and then big ones down the middle.
The big fan. Oh, yeah. All Liberty spikes.
Well,
that'd be
shorter,
pretty badass.
Shorter. I haven't fanned it in years, actually, because once with as long as my hair usually is, it's just too long for fanning, and
okay.
Sucks to admit, but my hair is a bit thinner on the top and center than it was when I was younger.
Oh yeah,
not bad, but
enough.
It's enough that it starts affecting the the structural integrity of the whole thing.
Structural integrity of your hair.
Yeah. So I started spiking it, and that's what I pretty exclusively do if I do put my mohawk up. And I keep it longer because I do like to braid it as well and do those braided styles, which I can't do with shorter hair. I had a weird hybrid for a while where I wanted to do this Roman mohawk, and
What's a Roman mohawk? Oh, where it's
so
flat?
I left a tail.
It's Trojan.
I left a tail about, I think it was the last quarter or last third, really long, and then I cut everything else from the front to about here, about this length. So it was like this, and then I had a tail that hung out down my back.
Okay.
But I caught a lot of flack from my friend John. Yeah, my friend John at the time. We'd be like at Casey Moore's, and some dude would say, "Hey, nice hair, man. What's with the tail?" And John would say, "Yeah, it just fucked me from behind handle."
Oh, no. Oh, no. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, so I had to cut that off eventually. It was kind of a cool experiment, though.
Yeah, why not, man? Why not? Yeah, I've done that. I've done like just a short mohawk, almost like the Liddell.
I think I've seen you.
Yeah,
with it.
I've done that a handful of times now.
The Liddell, yep.
Yeah, I shaved. I went completely bald and shaved my face one time to just completely throw off my wife, and it's like it's gonna grow back.
I think I saw you post a picture of that.
Yeah, I posted a picture, and then I had video of it of me getting home because she didn't see me all day. I left for the morning to get a haircut, went to work, and then got off really late.
Yeah.
So I woke her up, and she was just like, "What the?" Bleep? Yeah. But why not, man? It's gonna grow back, and it's gonna thin. I feel it thinning, but
I'm
have fun with it while you can.
Yeah. I'm hoping it goes like how my dad's is. He's still. I mean, it's pretty thin up top now, but he didn't start thinning up until I think his mid-40s.
No, okay.
So I'm hoping I can keep my majestic locks for a few more years. But even then, I'll at least have the beard.
So have you involved with your archaeologist, the work that you do? Have you handled or been involved in any like serious like legal cases / battles?
Actually, no. Thankfully, no. The closest I came to that, my first ever monitoring job. Of course. Yeah. First one ever. I was just watching a couple of guys run make some trenches to run some cables because they were trying to improve a city park. And they were cool guys to work with. I felt kind of bad in a sense because I was literally just standing there and watching them trench and taking my trowel and moving the dirt over here and there in the dirt pile to check for pottery sherds. But they were curious about it and they'd ask me about it, and I was telling them what I was there doing, what I was looking for. And by the second day, one of the guys would say, "Hey man, I got some over here. Is this anything?" So they were cool to work with. But the first morning of work, I show up, and that day we found 2 sets of remains. The first set was sadly a guy who was just laying there in the park, dead. So there were already a couple of people looking at him. I went over and I just touched his arm. I knew he was gone. And
like fresh dead.
Yeah, fresh, like meat on the bone. So you have to have dark humor in archaeology. So I did joke to my boss later that day. Yeah, there were 2 sets of remains, one juicy and one dry.
Oh,
but that's kind of it's kind of the way your humor develops when you're around death.
When you're around
that's what you
it's
work
the reality
with.
of it.
Yeah,
like everybody wants to make it such a I don't know, when you're in the moment or not in the moment in those positions, like cop humor or military humor or nurse humor or ER doctor humor or just humor in general, where you're constantly tested the way normies like myself aren't.
It's a coping mechanism.
It
is
is
absolutely. Some of my best friends are veterans. My best friend's an ex-Marine, and him and I like to bounce off each other all the time with black humor.
Yeah,
and it works with my profession and then his experience.
And it's again, like as humans, we push the envelope. So it's like, how fucked up can I be? That's there.
Yeah. But then the second set of remains at that job, I actually did find, we were pretty sure it was a sternum bone, a chest bone.
Yeah.
So we had to stop construction for the last part of the day. But yeah, make the phone calls to the tribe. And then we call my boss and we had to think it over. There were no other associated remains. And there's like, it's a judgment call that you make. There was nothing else associated with it in any of the dirt that we were pulling out. So the next day we kept going and we didn't find anything else. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this stuff, I have thankfully not had to participate in legal cases. I don't think I ever will because that's fairly rare.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's kind of a profession, forensic anthropology, which got a big boon with that series Bones a few years back.
Oh yeah.
Everyone wanted to be, everyone in the anthro department wanted to be a forensic anthropologist, and then I did too for a short bit, and then thankfully a professor kind of brought it back down to earth, and she said, I'm going to teach you forensic anthropology, but I just want you to know there's not really job growth in this sector, and 9 times out of 10, you're not a professional forensic anthropologist. You're an archaeologist or an anthropologist who gets called into a legal case.
Yeah. Super niche.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't foresee myself having to do that. But you never know, especially working down at the border. I would find stuff that people had left behind. Shirts, garbage. I remember one time I found a pair of kids' shoes. That was kind of like hard to think about.
Oh, you're talking about
down at the border.
Yeah, people crossing.
Yep. And people die all the time. And I hear from other people who work jobs like that, yeah, they have found people.
Man.
Yeah. But going back to like black humor, you have to cope with that. And humor is one way to do it. And, in archaeology, we're always joking about how we want to be disposed of when we die. I thought for a while, I was seriously considering how difficult it would be to construct my own burial mound if I ever buy some property. If I can get a tractor and just build this big mound and have myself interred in it when I die. But I also thought if I ever get a professorship, the perfect way for my remains to be used is to donate my skeleton to the university, with the caveat that they put a plaque down and they can put it in one of the classrooms, just my skeleton hanging there, the plaque at the bottom that says, "Even in death, my students couldn't escape me."
So to make that really happen, what would they have to do to your bones? What do they have to like?
Well, you'd
coat them.
You'd send my body to a mortician. They deflesh me and all that good stuff. And I actually don't know
the way you said deflesh mean. So like nonchalant.
Yeah. Yeah. The bones would be defleshed, and then they would treat the bones to preserve them. But I don't know the chemical process of that.
Yeah.
I've been curious about taking my current plan is to keep applying for PhDs, but I'm also applying to a second master's in a proper archaeology program. And that would be for the purposes of learning more museum curation. Because we didn't have any museum curation in my program, but I did work at a history museum.
Yeah.
So I would be curious about learning curation techniques if I do a second master's.
Nice. So a curation would basically to take a living, piece of, like a living piece of something and allow it to be exhibited for long periods of time, right?
Yeah, you're taking care of artifacts, whether that's animal or human remains, or if that's tools, clothing, whatever. Okay. You're learning the profession of taking care of artifacts and how to allow the public to view them and to restore them if they need to be.
Have you seen that documentary about, I feel like the museum is in Iceland too, the Penis Museum?
I knew that was coming.
Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Dude,
and I never went to the
it.
Penis Museum.
You didn't?
I have tons of friends who did, but I never went.
You gotta watch it. It's fucking amazing. And
okay, there's another one even better, I think, and that's the Witchcraft Museum in Northern Iceland, because they have something they have something there called necropants.
Okay.
And this is a really weird piece of Icelandic folklore. It's kind of debated whether or not it was a real thing or if it's just bullshit that someone ran with.
Yeah.
But supposedly the story behind necropants is when a relative dies, you skin them.
Uh-huh.
And there's a spell you put on the remains or something like that. You deskin your relative, and then you wear the skin as a set of pants. And generally it's a male relative of yours, and you take a coin and you tuck it in the scrotum. And as long as you're wearing the necropants under your regular clothes, you will never be poor.
So how long do you have to do it though?
Yeah, I don't know. The rest of your life?
What?
I don't know. But supposedly that was one I didn't get to see because it's pretty far. It's a far drive from Reykjavik. Supposedly they have a set of actual necropants on display.
Whoa, penis and
the whole
balls
thing.
and all.
Yep.
Sack.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, that was the whole thing about the that penis museum was he had like just about every animal, mammal, but the legality of getting a human penis.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think about it, it's like, why can't a person just donate their penis, right? But there becomes such a big legal issue.
Well, there's Body Works that that went around the country displaying the human body, and those were donated parts that were turned. I think they did a treatment that basically turned them to similar to wax.
Almost
waxy.
waxy.
Yeah. I don't know the legality of it in Iceland. I'm sure there are some issues, but I will say this. Ideas about nudity and the human body are quite a bit different in most parts of Europe in comparison to here.
Yeah, they don't have any problem showing the breasts.
No. Okay, so for instance, there's a brand new Danish children's show. I don't know the name of it, but a friend of mine from Denmark just informed me of this. It's a children's show about a man with a gigantic penis, and he uses it to do all kinds of things on the show. Now, he's always wearing a bathing suit, so it's not like a fully unsheathed thing that's just, it's not a full flesh snake that's just snaking around the
Have
TV.
you seen video of this?
I have not. I've seen screenshots of it, though. It looks hilarious.
Oh, of course. Some dude's painting with his dick.
Yeah.
It's just majestic.
So the ideas... We still have very puritanical ideas about nudity in North America. Well, I can't speak to Canada or Mexico, but in the United States, it's still very puritanical. I got very used to going into public showers with no qualms. There's the Blue Lagoon that all tourists want to go to when they go to Iceland. And they had to construct private showers for all the North Americans because they didn't want to go to the public showers.
Yeah.
So they did that. Or you go to these hot pools out in the countryside. They have geothermal pools all over the country, and landowners they'll like dam it up with rocks and stuff, and slightly develop it. Put a little changing hut there, and people just go out there and get in naked together. There's kind of a joke that I tell people. People in Nordic countries are only really social on two occasions: when they're drunk or when they get naked and get into hot water together.
Well, there's something to be said about being in another person's presence naked.
Yeah.
You're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it allows a more of an intimate connection, whether it be intimate in the sense of what we think that term means.
Well, we kind of mostly, this is a product of our media culture. We mostly associate nudity with sexuality.
Yeah, because it's deprived.
Yeah. Whereas in parts of Europe, that's not the case. So when I was working as a bar crawl guide and I was selling tickets on the beach, people are naked on the beach in Barcelona all the time. And for most people, like an American college student coming over and they have no idea, they think, awesome, nude beaches.
Yeah.
And then you're actually there. And you're walking past 76-year-old dudes who are naked, and you're like, oh, God, nude beaches.
Damn it, that's here too.
Yeah. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, well, that's the stupid idea I had when I was first going to college. I was going to school to be a firefighter. And so I'm thinking, I'll rescue the hot babes, that need help. And it's like, nah, it's just a bunch of lonely older people that are always, calling you for medical situations. Yeah, it's... It doesn't happen where it's like you're going to see all these, what you had pictured in your mind.
Right, yeah. So that's on Danish TV, and that's a children's television show.
Yeah, I have to see that, dude. My wife is going to get a kick out of that.
I'll probably send you a link to it. It's it looked hilarious, and I might sit down and watch an episode of it.
Send it to me on my new Parler account.
Oh, Parler, dude. That is, I think the FBI is so thankful for whoever came up with Parler, because that must be a treasure trove for them right now.
It's just so wild that if you allow complete, unadulterated, free speech, how fast it just delves into hatred, vulgarity, and all that. And a little bit of that is, again, like the dark humor. People have some sick humor, and they just say shit just to get a reaction.
I think most people are guilty of that at some point.
Yeah.
I will fully admit that. Yeah, I have said things just to get a rise out of someone. And it's not typically in a really mean spirit. I say it. How would I phrase it? I treat the people I love the most the worst.
Well, that's how you know you love them.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
You know.
that's how they know you love them.
Yeah, it's like you don't greet. Yeah, can I say it on the podcast? I don't greet my brother I'm really close to. It's like, oh, dude, I missed you. I say, what's up, fucker?
What's up, fucker? Yeah, yeah. That's exactly how it goes. Like, the podcast I had with my workout group, we were talking about it. It's like, we try to be inviting and whatnot, but it's like after you've been there for a while, it's just a bunch of dudes together pushing each other, and it's like, eventually you get to the shit talking part, and then that's when you know that you're a lot closer, when you can really bust somebody's balls, but they know that you don't have any ill will to them. You're just
That's very true. Yeah. But that being said, with Parler, it's really gone into a separate realm. I think I joined for fun because I just wanted to see what was I knew what it was set up as, because that. It's interesting to see how social media has evolved in the last 4 years while I was gone for 3 years. It's very easy to say you want a free speech platform. Yeah. But in reality, it's just a way for you to congregate with
you talking about an echo chamber?
It becomes an echo chamber that drives extremism. Mm-hmm. In a really ironic twist, and like, I'm sorry to get off into the political realm, but in a really ironic twist, it seems like conservative platforms are blowing up because they need a safe space. Yeah. You spend 4 years, and I was an outsider looking in to the United States for about 3 years of the last 4. And now it was 3 years. It was 3 years of the U.S. getting much more divisive, getting much more vicious towards each other. And what I find interesting now in the last couple of months is that the people who are screaming loudest about don't be a snowflake, here's your safe space, fuck your feelings, they're now the people who are retreating to a safe space. So there's a bit of interesting irony in that. And the last week has kind of been the culmination of everything I've been observing the last few years.
That's wild. Well, and now I guess I would say a safe space. It is a safe space in the sense of they feel like they can say what they want to say without the repercussions. Yes. But it's not a safe space in the sense of how they use safe space, because in their minds, safe space means don't say anything that'll hurt my feelings. Right. But they are saying things that'll hurt somebody's feelings, but then there's no repercussions from. Dude, I was posting a comment yesterday referring to myself as an ugly bitch, and Facebook like real quick was like, hey, before you post this, this kind of goes against our bullying and harassment, and it gave me the option to ignore, and I forgot to take a screenshot, to post or to do something else. I forget what the third option was. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to be an asshole, but I'm like, I'm talking about myself, dude. Send. Like, there's something to be said about self-deprecating humor. It's something I picked up from the British, and I'm a real fan of it these days. I think it's important to be able to make fun of yourself. Oh, huge.
There's an interesting philosophical discussion to be had about the nature of this free speech and how it's going these days, because I think we're in the States, we're almost reaching a point where people are forgetting that, speech is free, but not free from consequences. I can. It's that old situation people always refer to. Yeah, I can walk into a movie theater and scream fire, but I'm going to face consequences.
Yeah, exactly. And also, well, here's the thing about Facebook and Twitter and the major platforms that have really taken over how we communicate is that they play both sides. So business-wise, they're very conservative.
Yeah.
We gotta make money, profit. They got investors.
Oh,
and
it's an
shareholders.
oligarchy, and they're nearing monopoly status.
Yeah. But then they're totally like social, like in the forefront, they're like social as far as like, well, we support this cause and this cause, like on the face, but on the back end, like they're as for profit can be. And also they toe the line on being a private business, right? But also not being a free service where it's open to the public, so they don't get taxed a certain way. So they have some certain attributes that they can really capitalize on. So it is kind of shysty how they kind of teeter on the fence there on that issue. So I get it when the sense of like, hey, it's free speech, but it's also their platform, but also they're saying that we're not a private entity when they really are. It's this fucking big messy.
One thing I've noticed in the last week that kind of shocked me is that I feel like there's been a lack of education, sadly, in differentiating between the public and private domain, because I've seen so many comments and so many people when it comes to censorship on social media platforms rallying against it as communism, which ironically it's a private organization and it has and it has the right to set its own rules, and you're not required to consume their product. So it's interesting it's interesting, and it's also unfortunate to see a bit of the ignorance showing that people need to inform themselves better about the nature of the products they're using, and also the nature of their rights as citizens, and what they can and can't, who's going to dole out consequences for their speech, and what they can and cannot say. You have private platforms like Facebook have certain rules. Twitter has certain rules. They can tell you what you can and cannot say. Whereas you are, as a U.S. citizen, are 100% within your rights to don an SS uniform, carry a Nazi flag over to the state capitol building, and discuss your perceived the benefits of fascism. That's within your rights to do as an American citizen in the public sphere. And obviously any moral and any regular citizen is going to object to that for good reason. But you're within your right to do this in the public sphere. And there's a bit of a disconnect between what we use as private platforms and we've mixed up into being the public sphere.
Well, and that's because they have such a monopoly on it. So it becomes to a point where it is, it's fucking crazy to say, but it's like, if you don't have a Facebook account or a Twitter account, you almost don't have as much free speech as the next person that isn't.
You can't get your message out, and that's a difficult thing to navigate these days, which is why I hope, actually, I recently heard about the lawsuits against Facebook. I do hope they break it up, because there needs to be more diversity in the market, because you're right, it has become so monolithic that it needs diversification so that people can have their outlet and so that people can consume other products. But I think the point is that people are starting to forget that the digital realm is not necessarily entirely the public sphere, that there are other avenues to express yourself other than social media.
The free speech just basically means you're not going to go to jail. The government isn't going to prosecute you.
Precisely. Precisely.
At the end of the day, that's what free speech means.
I will say this, after being overseas, we are lucky in a sense that the United States is fairly unique
in that
anything goes. Like the example I just gave you.
You can't do that shit in Germany.
You might be a shitbag and fully believe in fascism, and you can go tout that to your followers, and there's no legal repercussions for it. You're a shitbag, but that's your right to be one. In Germany, you will go to jail.
Yeah,
you
that's
will.
wild.
Well, actually, no, I don't think. No, you won't go to jail. But I do think you will pay a fine. They'll fine you for it.
Yeah.
And other byproducts of that are just one thing I forgot about is how weird America gets.
What do you mean?
So I saw this video a couple of months ago about this UFO convention, and there were people dead serious talking about lizard people in charge of the government. Hillary Clinton was a reptilian.
Yeah.
There was this one lady who said her dog had ascended to the heavens and was living with the Greys or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't meet people like this in Europe that often. Not very. You don't meet people like this.
That's true. There are people that have experiences of either UFO or experience with a third kind, but not to the level of detail that we have in the U.S.
Yeah. It's the weird factor is a lot weirder in the U.S. than I've seen in Europe. There are people out there.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of someone in Germany who lives in a bubble because they think that all modern chemicals cause life-threatening severe allergic reactions, and so they have to seclude into the middle of nowhere and not have contact with anyone and read a book through a glass container. I think that was an episode, I forget the name of the TV show, but there was an episode about a woman in the town I went to high school in Snowflake, Arizona, that had to seclude herself into this bubble because she thought that she was deathly allergic to all modern technology and modern innovations.
Oh, that's kind of like the character in listeners are gonna love that pause. Saul, Better Call Saul.
Okay, I've seen
because you saw Breaking
episodes.
Bad. You've seen Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Saul was a good character.
So
I didn't see the show though.
His brother has he has this idea in his mind that electricity like makes him sick.
Yeah. So stuff like that. You get people like this in the States.
5G. Woo!
Yeah, 5G giving us that Rona. But yeah, so the weird factor in the States is off the scale in comparison to other places I've lived.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, it's kind of the beautiful thing about living in the States that there is the ability to really be whatever the hell you want to be. Mm-hmm. But going back to what we were discussing, responsibility needs to be there when you're reaching into the fringes, so to speak, the extremism that we see these days in American culture. There needs to be, you need to be responsible. You can say what you want, do what you want, but you need to be responsible about it.
That's easier said than done, sir.
Yeah, well, nobody's perfect at it.
No, and that's the thing. It's hard. It's hard to do, and it's easier to just spout off, and then it's easier to just shit the bed and leave it. You know?
Yeah, that or get up on your soapbox and lecture people about how things should be done. So it's got to be careful not to wade into that territory as well.
And telling somebody how to live their life, no matter how right you feel the way you're doing it or it should be done, is like. There's just I've gotten to that point myself where I'm like, I have my way that I think things should be done, but if somebody else feels comfortable doing it their way and it's not harming anybody else and it's getting the same outcome, then who am I to say like don't do it that way?
Yeah, that's kind of the attitude I've had over the years. Just it's the you do you attitude. And I actually lost my train of thought with where I was going with that.
Well, it's really libertarian. Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the libertarian side of, hey man, do you, as long as you're not inflicting any ill will on anybody else. Like, what am I going to care?
Yeah, and I hope we can get back to that, because it was a bit shocking getting back. That's the train of thought I was going with. It was a bit shocking getting back in a sense, and seeing how adversarial things had gotten when I came home.
Everybody's gotten entrenched in their team.
Yeah. I mean, this is a free country. You should be able to be who you are. So coming back from countries that are quite a bit further politically left than the U.S., their idea of the center, is far left from ours.
Yeah.
I was basically called a communist by people when I came back, and that would be funny normally, but this was in a very serious tone, in that, you are an enemy of the United States. You ascribe to an ideology that is antithetical to my way of life.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the way the country, we like to say, you be you and do whatever you want, but it's become very entrenched, and since I've been back, it is very adversarial. I hope that it becomes more of a live and let live environment again.
Yeah.
But it was a bit shocking at first.
Yeah, it's like fucking jumping in cold ass water, dude, coming back.
Yeah, well, there's a term for it actually, reverse culture shock. So when you travel, a lot of people have experienced culture shock, where you go to a place that's entirely different from everything you've known, and you have to adapt, and you go through different phases.
You experience a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to come back and just to see that life is still like, that it hasn't advanced as you have personally, you're just like, dude, what the hell?
I wouldn't even say advanced, because that's a bit unfair to say. It's just on a different... Yeah, things had changed since I left. I won't say the rest of the world advanced. It just kind of went on its way.
No, I mean, you advanced.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you expanded your own knowledge and understanding of the world, with your experiences, and then you come back and it's like,
well, it's
almost like going to like a really good seminar or like a motivational speech, and then you come back and
full of these ideas and what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, this is the real world, and it's not a seminar.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly the point I was trying to make.
Well, It went beyond that, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, with the reverse culture shock. It was... So, one of the biggest things when I came back was being able to understand people again. Living in Germany, living in Iceland, not being fluent in the local language, you start living in this little bubble of ignorance. You don't understand everyone on the bus that you're sitting with. You... know a few phrases to get through the checkout counter at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And you can make some small talk with people at the bar. But by and large, a lot of the conversation going on, if you're not familiar with the vocabulary and you're fluent, you don't know what's going on. And then I fly back into the USA in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and suddenly I hear everyone's gossip at the airport, and it was a bit overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There were just a lot of things you'd never think about when you live here, and coming back to it was a bit overwhelming.
No, that makes total sense when you put it like that.
Yeah. 3 years of listening to nothing but Icelandic, and I can read Icelandic, but learning the Old Norse, that's not spoken Icelandic, so I can't speak Icelandic. And I knew some phrases, I knew some sentences. And then coming back to the U.S. and understanding everything around me was a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, sensory overload.
Yeah.
God, yeah. You wouldn't even think of that. But yeah, that's got to be a huge factor.
Yeah, it took a while to get over the reverse culture shock. I can't say... I don't think I've ever actually experienced culture shock. I'm usually I like to think I'm a fairly flexible individual, and I managed to adapt. So it was kind of weird that it was coming back that was harder than leaving.
Oh, yeah, but you weren't ready for that.
Well, yeah, it took some... I was very lucky in a sense that I landed. I had people helping me when I landed. I had family, I had friends to give me a place. I wasn't sleeping in the street when I came back.
Yeah.
And for whatever weird reason, archaeology has been almost completely insulated from this economic depression. Actually, I think archaeology fieldwork is busier than it ever has been.
Damn.
So I've been busy with work, and I've been shielded by a lot of the effects of what's going on.
It's fortunate.
Yeah, so it's I have to keep in mind how good I have it in comparison.
Well, buddy, let's bring this home, man. So if people are interested in becoming archaeologists, what would you recommend?
To use the phrase, schools are... How did it go? Well, yeah, stay in school, kids. You gotta go to college, and just... You need to study. Generally in the U.S., you got to study anthropology.
Yeah.
But you can get started early. Go to museums. With the internet, you can read anything you want to. But of course, archaeology is a minefield these days with pseudoscience.
Okay.
And that's actually something I deal with on a regular basis. Is ancient aliens, conspiracy theories, this and that. So the internet is an amazing tool if you want to research archaeology, and I would recommend you do so, but you got to be careful about the rabbit holes you go down into.
Yeah.
I'm consistently having to tell people who send me this picture, hey, is this real? It's a Photoshop of a quote-unquote giant skeleton that's being excavated by some biblical archaeologists, and it's proof of the Nephilim in the Bible. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man, this is a Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in Arizona, you can go to the community college, you can go to the university, study anthropology, and start field work. Outside of that, I'm not entirely sure how it works in most of the U.S. I think generally it's all... You would have to study anthropology. In Europe, it's different. You actually study an archaeology degree.
Oh, shit.
So archaeology is a separate field.
Yeah.
What we've done in the U.S. is we've taken archaeology and put it under the umbrella field of anthropology, which is linguistics, cultural anthropology, which is what people think of the classical European hanging out with the primitives, linguistics, and then archaeology. And these days... Like I was alluding to earlier with how expensive things are, I really try to push people to look for options overseas.
Okay.
For all the reasons I've discussed on this podcast, being able to empathize.
Do that if you can, yeah.
Empathize with people. But it also makes you more employable. So if you want to go study your degree overseas, pick up a second language, maybe you stay, or maybe you come home. And you're just that more marketable to companies because you're more flexible, and if they have operations elsewhere, they can send you there. So yeah, it's a university degree, but just have a passion for history and for culture, and that's all there is to it. I kind of fell into it. I didn't start college wanting to be an archaeologist. I kind of just took classes in everything. Psychology, philosophy, history, anthropology. Took a class in physics and just narrowed it down.
Oh, yeah. Just have a passion for it. That's what it comes down to. Find your passion, people. That's what I always say. Find it and
follow it.
Follow it, yeah. Dain, thanks for the conversation, man.
Thank you, Juan.
Thanks for the whiskey. Thanks for the absinthe. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Cool, man. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you soon. right.
Yeah.
Adios.